My name is Jin Park, and at 23 years old, I had exactly 3 things to my name: a cracked phone, a bicycle with one working brake, and a bank balance so low my banking app had started sending me motivational quotes. I was not lazy. That would have been easier to explain. I worked all the time. The problem was that every job I found seemed designed by a committee whose only goal was to keep me alive, but never comfortable. My main job was at a tiny restaurant called Golden Spoon, which was a very generous name for a place where half the spoons had bite marks in them. I made minimum wage, washed dishes, carried boxes, wiped tables, peeled onions, and occasionally stood in front of the freezer pretending I had been sent there for something because it was the only place my manager could not yell at me without getting cold. My manager, Mr. Han, had the supernatural ability to appear whenever I stopped moving for more than 3 seconds. If I leaned against a counter, he appeared. If I checked the time, he appeared. One night, I sneezed with my eyes closed, and when I opened them, he was already there holding a mop. That was the kind of life I was living. Then, on the worst Tuesday of my life, everything changed because I completed a shift, not won the lottery, not found a hidden inheritance, not got hit by a truck and reincarnated as a duke. I clocked out. That was it. The dinner rush had been horrible. A family of 12 ordered enough food to supply a small kingdom. 2 children turned the condiment station into modern art, and somebody dropped a bowl of soup so perfectly that it somehow splashed the ceiling. At exactly 11:07 p.m., I pressed the clock out button. A blue window appeared in front of my face. I stared at it. It floated in the air. It was transparent, glowing, and very clearly not part of the restaurant. The message was simple: occupation completed. Restaurant worker. Future income for this occupation multiplied by 2. I stood there for maybe 10 seconds. Then I looked around. Nobody reacted. Mr. Han was counting receipts. The cook was arguing with a rice cooker. The window was apparently mine alone. I poked it. My finger passed through. The window vanished. My first thought was that I had finally inhaled too much industrial strength dish soap. My second thought was that maybe I should sleep. My third thought came the next afternoon when I received a notification from the payroll app. My shift from the previous day had paid normally, but the shift I had just completed that afternoon was listed at exactly twice the hourly rate. I stared at the number until my eyes watered. I refreshed the app. Still there. I closed it. Opened it. Still there. I restarted my phone. Still there. Then I did what any calm, rational adult would do. I ran into the restaurant bathroom, locked the door, and whispered, "No way." A blue window appeared. Restaurant worker income multiplier 2. Next completed shift multiplier 4. That was when I understood the first rule. The money did not double because the restaurant gave me a raise. Reality itself was somehow adjusting my income after every completed workday. The second rule took me another shift to confirm. I worked Wednesday. At the end of the night, the blue window appeared again. Occupation completed. Restaurant worker. Future income multiplied by 2. The next day, my hourly pay was 4 times the original rate. I nearly dropped a tray. At 4 times minimum wage, carrying bowls no longer felt humiliating. It felt strategic. I became the most enthusiastic table cleaner in human history. I wiped one table so quickly that an old man thought I was trying to steal it. By Friday, I was making 8 times my starting rate. On Saturday, 16. On Sunday, 32. The system did not care that the restaurant had no budget for this. Money simply appeared in payroll as if it had always belonged there. The accountant looked confused. Mr. Han looked terrified. I looked financially hydrated for the first time in my life. Sunday night, I finished another shift and saw the next number, 64 times. That should have made me happy. Instead, it made me suspicious, because something that powerful always had rules. I spent the next morning testing them. I took a 1-hour cleaning gig through an app. I scrubbed an office kitchen, took out trash, and cleaned a microwave that contained substances I do not believe occur naturally on Earth. When I finished, nothing happened. No blue window. No multiplier. I tried another 2-hour cleaning gig. Still nothing. Then I realized the wording had always been specific. A completed workday. Not a task. Not an hour. Not a random gig. I needed to satisfy the definition of a full shift for that occupation. So I took an 8-hour warehouse shift. For 8 straight hours, I moved boxes while a supervisor named Louis shouted barcode numbers like he was calling an auction. At the end, I clocked out. The window appeared. Occupation completed. Warehouse worker. Future income multiplied by 2. I laughed so loudly in the parking lot that a security guard asked if I needed help. I did not need help. I needed more jobs. That was the moment my brain stopped thinking like a broke employee and started thinking like a lunatic with a spreadsheet. The restaurant multiplier belonged to restaurant work. The warehouse multiplier belonged to warehouse work. If every occupation had its own chain, then I did not need one career. I needed all of them. The next week became what I can only describe as career speed dating. Monday morning, I delivered food on my bicycle. Not for 2 hours. A full registered shift. 8 miserable hours. The first 4 were normal. The 5th involved a customer who lived on the 7th floor of a building whose elevator had apparently retired. The 6th involved soup. Never deliver soup on a bicycle with one break. That lesson cost me a shoe. At the end of the shift, the blue window appeared. Occupation completed. Delivery driver. Future income multiplied by 2. I immediately accepted another full shift the next day. This time, every delivery paid double. By the end of Tuesday, the multiplier became 4. On Wednesday morning, I went back to the restaurant. Its multiplier was already 64. One shift there paid more than I used to earn in several weeks. Mr. Han watched me clock in like I was a rare endangered species. He asked why payroll kept showing impossible numbers. I told him I had been working very hard. He stared at me. I stared back. Then I carried a bag of onions and decided honesty was overrated. After the shift, my restaurant multiplier became 128. On Thursday, I worked as a moving assistant. I spent 8 hours carrying couches through stairwells designed by architects who hated furniture. One couch got stuck between the 3rd and 4th floor. The owner insisted it had entered the apartment that way. Physics disagreed. We rotated it, tilted it, lifted it, lowered it, removed the legs, removed the door, removed another door that was not even related to the couch. And at some point, one of the movers suggested we simply declare the 3rd floor hallway a new living room. When the shift ended, the system classified me as a mover. Multiplier 2. Friday, I worked at a car wash. Saturday, hotel housekeeping. Sunday, grocery stocker. Every time, the same thing happened. A new profession unlocked. A new multiplier started. 2, then 4, then 8. The system was not giving me money. It was giving me seeds. And every job was its own ridiculous money tree. The smartest thing I could do was plant as many trees as possible. So that became my life. I made a schedule that looked like the work history of 12 different people sharing one body. Restaurant on Mondays. Delivery on Tuesdays. Warehouse every other Wednesday. Moving jobs whenever someone was desperate enough to hire a stranger with suspiciously high enthusiasm. I signed up for temp agencies. I answered classified ads. I took certificates online. I watched tutorials at 2 in the morning. I learned just enough to become legally employable in occupations I had never considered. My friends thought I was having an identity crisis. They were wrong. I was having an income crisis in reverse. 3 weeks later, my delivery multiplier had reached 32, and that was when the system showed me its first truly ridiculous side. I accepted an order for 2 sandwiches. The normal delivery fee was $6. My multiplier made it 192. Then there was a distance bonus, then a peak time bonus, then a rain bonus because 3 drops fell from the sky and the app panicked. My final payout was $246 to carry 2 sandwiches 17 blocks. I delivered them like they were royal babies. I wore my bicycle helmet correctly. I stopped at every light. I avoided potholes with the focus of a fighter pilot. When the customer opened the door, I handed over the bag with both hands. She looked at me strangely because I was smiling too hard. She said thanks. I whispered, "No, thank you." Then I rode away $246 richer. That should have been enough. It was not. Money has a funny effect when you have spent years counting every coin. The first 100 feels like rescue. The first 1,000 feels like safety. Then, once you realize the number can keep growing, safety becomes curiosity. I wanted to know where the ceiling was, so I pushed delivery harder. At 64 times, I made almost $500 per order during busy periods. At 128, a short trip paid over $1,000. At 256, I delivered a milk tea 4 blocks and made enough to replace my bicycle. I bought a used scooter. The scooter lasted exactly 2 days. Not because it broke, because my payout became so absurd that I bought a motorcycle instead. Then I discovered another rule. The system classified vehicle courier work differently from bicycle food delivery. Occupation unlocked, motorcycle courier. Multiplier started at 2. I nearly screamed inside my helmet. The system was more specific than I expected. That meant there were not dozens of chains. There could be hundreds. Maybe thousands. I began testing categories like a mad scientist. Restaurant server and restaurant kitchen worker were separate. Food delivery and parcel courier were separate. Warehouse picker and forklift operator were separate. Car washer and auto detailer were separate. Sales clerk and commission salesman were separate. Photographer and photo editor were separate. My life turned into an attack on the concept of specialization. Most people spent years becoming good at one thing. I spent weeks becoming barely acceptable at everything. This produced problems. For example, I decided to unlock mechanic. I found a small garage owned by a man named Dae-ho who needed temporary help. I told him I had basic experience. By basic experience, I meant I had once changed a windshield wiper after watching a video twice. He looked at my hands. He looked at my shoes. He looked into my soul. Then he handed me a broom. For the first 2 days, I did not touch a single engine. Apparently, sweeping inside a mechanic shop did not make me a mechanic. The system was rude but technically correct. So I started learning. I changed oil. I replaced filters. I rotated tires. I spent an entire afternoon trying to remove one bolt that had fused itself to a wheel through hatred. Dae-ho finally let me assist on repairs. At the end of my first full mechanic shift, the blue window appeared. Occupation completed, mechanic, future income multiplied by 2. I almost hugged the car. Then Dae-ho offered me another shift. I accepted. By the 6th mechanic shift, I was earning 64 times his normal rate. He became extremely polite around me. He stopped calling me kid. He started calling me Mr. Park. I did not correct him. The best part was that I actually improved, because if I wanted to unlock jobs quickly, I had to become competent quickly. Money became my motivation. Embarrassment became my teacher, and tutorial videos became my university. I could change brake pads before lunch, take listing photos for an apartment after lunch, deliver parcels in the evening, and serve noodles at night. Was I exhausted? Absolutely. But I was also becoming a strange kind of human multi-tool. Then came real estate. That chain started by accident. A realtor named Seo Min-ji came into Golden Spoon during my restaurant shift. She was on the phone complaining that her assistant had quit before a weekend property showing. I was carrying 6 plates at the time, but my ears became financially sensitive. Assistant, property showing, real estate, possible occupation. I put the plates down and asked if she needed temporary help. She stared at my apron. I told her I was very organized. This was technically true. My calendar looked like military logistics. She asked if I knew anything about property. I said, people live inside it. She almost left, then her phone rang again. 10 minutes later, I had a weekend assistant job. At first, I carried brochures, arranged shoe covers, unlocked doors, and smiled at couples who entered apartments already arguing about where the sofa would go. No system message. Apparently, I was only an assistant. So I watched Min-ji. She explained square footage. She explained financing. She explained school districts. She explained why cozy meant small and full of character meant there was a pipe in the living room. By the second day, a client arrived while she was stuck in traffic. I gave the tour myself. The apartment was tiny. The bedroom barely fit a bed. The kitchen had a window facing a brick wall. The balcony was shaped like an apology. I could have lied. Instead, I said the place was perfect for someone who hated owning furniture. The client laughed. Then he made an offer. Min-ji returned 15 minutes later and stared at me like I had performed surgery with a spoon. That evening, she let me handle 2 more viewings. At the end of the shift, the system appeared. Occupation completed. Realtor. Future income multiplied by 2. I sat on the curb outside the building and began laughing, because restaurant income doubled my wages. Delivery income doubled my delivery fees. But realtor income doubled commissions. Commissions. Percentages of property prices. I had found a larger lever. I worked my second official real estate shift a week later. Then a third. Then a 4th. The multiplier reached 16. Min-ji could not understand why my commission statements looked wrong. Neither could the agency. Their accounting software insisted the numbers were correct. Reality itself was apparently willing to forge paperwork for me. I sold a modest studio. The normal commission share should have been around $2,000. Mine became $32,000. I stared at the deposit for half an hour. Then I did something irresponsible. I ordered restaurant delivery. Not because I was hungry. I wanted to experience being on the other side. A delivery rider arrived with fried chicken. I tipped him $200. He looked at the tip, then looked at me, then looked at the chicken like maybe it contained a diamond. I understood that face. I used to make that face over an extra 5. The next morning, I bought my mother a new refrigerator and told her I had been promoted. She asked, To what? I froze. That was a complicated question. I told her management. Again, technically not true. But I am currently a restaurant worker, courier, mechanic, mover, warehouse employee, cleaner, car detailer, realtor, grocery stocker, and maybe hotel housekeeper, depending on whether the system accepted Tuesday, would have created more questions. The bigger problem was that money was starting to move faster than my life could explain. I needed jobs with scalable payouts. That led me to sales. I started at an electronics store. My first shift involved selling phones, headphones, smartwatches, and a robot vacuum to a man who came in only to buy batteries. I was not naturally persuasive. I was naturally broke. There is a difference. A naturally persuasive person makes you want something. A naturally broke person calculates exactly how many commission dollars stand between him and dinner. I studied every product. I learned every feature. I learned which televisions were overpriced. I learned which headphones were secretly excellent. I learned how to spot a customer who wanted advice and a customer who wanted to be left alone. I even learned the sacred art of nodding seriously while someone explained why they needed a gaming computer for work. At the end of my first full shift, the system classified me as retail salesperson, multiplier 2, good, but I wanted commission salesman, so I joined a furniture showroom that paid commission. I sold sofas, then office chairs, then a massage chair so expensive it had more buttons than my motorcycle. After a full day, I unlocked commission sales. That chain became dangerous very quickly. At 8 times, selling a luxury sofa paid more than a normal weekly wage. At 32, one living room set paid more than a car. At 128, I sold a custom home theater package and earned enough to buy the apartment I was currently renting. I did not buy it. I bought the entire floor above it. My landlord called to ask if there was a mistake. I told him no. Then I asked if he wanted to sell the building. There was a long silence. That was when I realized wealth had changed the kinds of jokes I could make. A month earlier, asking to buy the building would have been comedy. Now it was a possible Tuesday. Still, I did not want to become lazy. The system only rewarded completed workdays. If I stopped working, the multiplier stopped growing. So I kept collecting occupations. Chef was harder. At Golden Spoon, I had done kitchen tasks, but the system had classified most of them as restaurant worker. To unlock chef, I needed responsibility for actual dishes. Mr. Han refused. He said customers came to eat, not participate in an experiment. Fair. So I enrolled in a short professional cooking course. Then I found a pop-up kitchen willing to hire temporary line cooks for a festival. The head chef, a terrifying woman named Mira, could insult an onion into dicing itself. On my first day, I burned garlic. She looked at the pan, looked at me, and asked if I had a personal grudge against flavor. I recovered. By dinner, I was moving faster. By closing, I had survived. The system appeared. Occupation completed. Line cook. Multiplier 2. Not chef. I had unlocked another category, but not the one I wanted, so I kept going. 2 shifts later, Mira let me run 1 station. A week later, I planned a special dish for a private event because someone else called in sick. It was spicy beef noodles with crispy garlic, charred scallions, and enough chili oil to cause people to reconsider their life choices. The guests loved it. One man cried. I assumed from joy. At the end of the night, the system appeared. Occupation completed. Chef. Future income multiplied by 2. I had never been so proud of a financial pop-up. Chef turned out to be strange. Unlike delivery or sales, income did not always come as a clear fee. The system increased whatever compensation was tied to my work. Wages multiplied. Bonuses multiplied. Revenue shares multiplied. Tips multiplied. This gave me an idea so stupid it became brilliant. I rented a tiny food stall for 1 day. I was the chef and owner. I served 1 dish. The spicy beef noodles. I priced them at $10. People bought them. At the end of the day, the system counted both chef earnings and food business operator earnings separately. 2 chains, 1 bowl. I nearly dropped the ladle. From that day on, I stopped asking what job should I do. I started asking how many occupations can one activity count as. That question ruined my normal life in the best possible way. I started designing workdays like combo attacks. A property client needed professional listing photos. I became the photographer. Then I edited the photos. Then I wrote the listing copy. Then I handled the sales consultation. Then I sold the property. One afternoon generated progress in photographer, photo editor, copywriter, consultant, and realtor. I felt like I had discovered a loophole in the universe's accounting department. Photography itself began with embarrassment. My first professional camera was expensive enough that I carried it like a newborn. I took a small gig photographing menu items for a cafe. I knew the basics. Light, angles, focus. Unfortunately, food has a way of looking less delicious the longer you stare at it. A stack of pancakes started beautiful. 40 minutes later, it looked like building insulation. The whipped cream collapsed. The syrup migrated. A strawberry fell over with the emotional energy of a defeated soldier. I panicked. Then I remembered a trick from a video. I rebuilt the shot. I adjusted the light. I moved the plate. I used a reflector made from the cafe's silver tray. The final photos looked good enough that the owner hired me for a full-day branding shoot. At the end, I unlocked photographer. 2, then 4, then 8. By the time the multiplier reached 64, I was paid more to photograph a wedding than the couple had paid for the venue. That created an awkward moment. The groom asked if my invoice had an extra 0. I checked. It had the correct number of zeros. I told him the platform handled my compensation. He nodded slowly, then asked if my camera could see the future. I said only in portrait mode. He laughed. I did not, because at that point I was beginning to wonder if the system could. Every few occupations, new information appeared. Not instructions, more like statistics. Total active occupations, 17. Highest multiplier, restaurant worker, 1,024. Combined projected earning potential, unstable. That last word bothered me. Unstable. Not high. Not extreme. Unstable. I tapped it. Nothing happened. I ignored it. This is called foreshadowing, but at the time I called it Tuesday. The next career I chased was consulting. I had no idea how to become a consultant because I had no idea what consultants actually did. I searched online. The answer seemed to be make a presentation, use arrows, say optimization, and charge enough money that people assume you are correct. I was perfect for this. My first client was Daeho, the garage owner. His repair shop had a real problem. He was busy all day but constantly short on cash. I offered to spend one day reviewing operations. He asked what qualified me. I said I had worked in 17 occupations. He asked if that was supposed to reassure him. I said no. He hired me anyway because I offered to do the first day cheap. I watched everything. Customers arrived. Cars waited. Mechanics walked back and forth searching for tools. Parts were ordered late. Appointments overlapped. The phone rang every 6 minutes. Daeho personally approved every tiny decision. By lunch, the problem was obvious. The shop was not slow because workers were lazy. It was slow because every process required Daeho to become a human traffic light. I reorganized tool stations, set up a simple parts board, created appointment blocks, moved common supplies, gave each mechanic authority over basic approvals. Then I removed a broken printer that had been sitting beside the front desk for 2 years. This last change improved morale more than everything else. At the end of the day, Daeho admitted the shop had completed more jobs than usual. The blue window appeared. Occupation completed, business consultant. Future income multiplied by 2. I stared at the words. Business consultant, not general consultant. A separate category. Of course it was. The universe had apparently been designed by someone who loved drop-down menus. The next day, Daeho paid my consulting fee. It doubled. A week later, I consulted for Minji's real estate office. Then a cafe. Then a delivery company. By 16 times, my one-day consulting fee became more than some companies earned in a week. By 64, executives began listening before I finished sentences. This taught me one of the funniest things about money. When my consulting fee was $500, clients questioned everything. When it became $30,000, they wrote down my jokes. At one meeting, I casually said, maybe stop making employees enter the same customer data into 3 different systems. The director looked stunned. He whispered, simplification. 6 people nodded. Someone wrote it on a whiteboard. I almost died. I began testing the system's tolerance for increasingly strange jobs. Dog walker, unlocked. Event host, unlocked. Tour guide, unlocked. Furniture assembler, unlocked. Voice actor, somehow unlocked after I recorded safety instructions for an industrial training video. Model, unlocked after I spent a full day wearing winter jackets for an online catalog in a studio that was 90 degrees. I discovered that modeling is mostly standing still while strangers adjust your sleeves. The system still counted it. I became a bartender for 1 shift, but my cocktail skills were so bad that I was demoted to pouring beer. The system unlocked bar staff, not bartender. I took that personally. 3 weeks later, I returned after taking a proper course and made drinks so beautiful that customers photographed them before drinking. Bartender unlocked. I celebrated by making myself a soda. The list kept growing. Tutor, translator assistant, event planner, auction assistant, personal shopper, house painter, landscaper, pet sitter, gym trainer. I did not unlock surgeon because I had limits. I also did not unlock astronaut because the application process seemed inconvenient. But I did discover something even better. The multipliers did not decay. If I worked one day as a photographer, disappeared for a month, then returned, the next photographer day continued the chain. That meant I could rotate occupations. I built a master schedule. Every day I selected jobs with the best combination of multiplier growth, current payout, and fun. I became richer at a rate that should have attracted satellites. My restaurant multiplier reached 8,192. At that point, one ordinary shift produced a paycheck so large that Mr. Han's restaurant could have been purchased several times over. He eventually called me into his office. He closed the door. He put my payroll report on the desk. Then he asked the question I had been avoiding. "Jin, are you stealing from me?" I looked at the paper. The number was horrifying. Not because I had stolen it, because it was too large to explain. I told him I had never taken a cent from the restaurant. That was true. He said the money was leaving the payroll processor, but the restaurant's actual account was not losing it. I blinked. That was new. He said the payment records showed bonuses that he had never approved, funded through automatic adjustment credits from accounts he could not identify. Reality was not draining my employers. It was generating the money through corrections. The system had protected the source. Mr. Han asked if I knew what was happening. I chose my words carefully. I said, "I think I'm very good at clocking out." He stared at me for a long time. Then he laughed. I laughed. Then he stopped laughing. I stopped too. He slid the paper back. He said that as long as the restaurant was not losing money and I kept doing the work, he did not care if the moon itself was paying me. I stood up. Then he added one condition. If I ever became a billionaire from washing dishes, I had to buy him a new dishwasher. I promised. At that moment, I did not realize how soon that promise would become financially reasonable, because my next idea was delivery, not food delivery, commercial delivery. A logistics company needed temporary drivers for high-priority documents and specialty parcels. I had already unlocked parcel courier, but this was classified as commercial courier. New chain. I signed up. The routes were boring at first. Office to office, warehouse to lab, law firm to courthouse. Then, on my 7th completed commercial courier day, the multiplier reached 128. My payout for a rush package across the city became nearly $4,000. I finished the day, 256. Next week, a biotechnology company needed a temperature-controlled sample moved 40 minutes away. Normal rush fee, $800. My multiplier, 256. My payout, $204,800 for driving a cooler across town. I checked the seal 9 times. I drove under the speed limit. I refused to turn on the radio because music felt irresponsible. When I arrived, a technician scanned the package. Delivery complete. My phone vibrated. Payment received, $204,800. I stood in the loading bay holding an empty clipboard and realized I had just earned the price of a house by not spilling a cooler. My brain went silent. Then the system appeared. Commercial courier occupation completed. Future income multiplied by 2. Next multiplier, 512. I started laughing. The technician backed away slowly. That night, I went home to my new apartment, sat on a couch that cost more than my old yearly income, and opened my occupation list. Restaurant worker, 8,192. Delivery driver, 2,048. Commercial courier, 512. Realtor, 256. Commission salesman, 512. Mechanic, 128. Chef, 64. Photographer, 128. Business consultant, 64. And dozens more. The numbers looked like cheat codes. But one thought bothered me. Why had I gotten this power? Why me? And what happened when a multiplier became too large? I did not get an answer. Instead, a new blue window opened. Milestone reached. 40 occupations registered. Cross-occupation function unlocked. I sat upright. The next line appeared slowly. Compatible occupations may now combine for a single payment event. I read it once, then twice, then 5 times. Combine, not just progress at the same time. Payments could combine? My hands started shaking, because I was already making absurd money using one multiplier at a time. If several could apply to the same job, then the difference between rich and ridiculous was about to disappear. I opened the details. The rule was simple. If a single task legitimately qualified as multiple registered occupations, each relevant income multiplier could apply in sequence. In sequence, not added. Multiplied. I stared at the wall. Then I pulled out a calculator. Photographer multiplier, 128. Realtor, 256. Consultant, 64. Salesman, 512. If one property job legitimately used all 4, I typed the numbers. The calculator result had too many digits. I deleted it. Typed again. Same result. I whispered, That seems illegal. The system did not respond. Apparently the universe had no compliance department. The next morning I called Minji. I told her I wanted the strangest property listing she had. She asked why. I said I was testing a theory. She said she did not like the sound of that. I told her it could make us both rich. She said she suddenly liked the sound much more. 2 days later, I stood in front of a property nobody wanted. It was a former karaoke building converted into a house by a man who had apparently never seen a house. The kitchen was on the second floor. The main bedroom had mirrored walls. There was a tiny stage in the basement. One bathroom had 2 toilets facing each other. I did not ask. The listing had been sitting for 11 months. Perfect. I spent the morning photographing it. Photographer. Then I edited the images. Photo editor. Then I created a renovation plan and repositioning strategy. Business consultant. Then I rewrote the listing. Copywriter. Then I hosted viewings. Realtor. Then I personally negotiated the sale. Commission salesman. 1 task. Multiple professions. A young entrepreneur bought the building to turn it into a private content studio. The final commission and service package should have paid me about $6,000. I waited. My phone vibrated. I opened the payment notice. For several seconds I thought the app had crashed and filled the screen with random numbers. Then I counted and counted again. The payout was over $600 million. I did not move. Minji asked if I was okay. I said yes. She asked why my face looked like I had seen a ghost. I handed her the phone. She stared at the amount, then handed it back, then took it again, then zoomed in, then looked at me. She said one word, "How?" I had no answer that would not make me sound insane. So I said bundling. She stared at me like that was somehow worse. I left the building as one of the richest 23-year-olds on the planet, and the system was still only warming up. $600 million sounds like the point where a normal person would stop working. I considered it for almost 7 minutes. Then I remembered the cross-occupation function. Also, I had promised Mr. Han a dishwasher, so the next day I bought him one, not a normal dishwasher. I accidentally bought the restaurant supply company that made the dishwasher. This happened because wealth at that level creates new kinds of mistakes. I called a commercial supplier and asked for their best machine. A sales manager recognized my name from the real estate transaction because apparently people notice when a 23-year-old receives a 9-digit service payment. He invited me to tour the company. I went. I asked questions. He showed me the factory. I noticed 3 obvious logistics problems because I had worked in warehouses, delivery, repair, sales, and consulting. I suggested fixes. The owner joined us. We talked for 2 hours. At some point, he joked that I seemed to know his business better than he did. I joked that maybe I should buy it. He named a price. I said okay. There was a silence so complete I could hear a forklift reversing 3 rooms away. That afternoon, I owned 41% of a commercial kitchen equipment company. Mr. Han got his dishwasher. He stared at the logo, then at me, then at the logo again. He asked why the company had sent 6 technicians and a camera crew to install it. I told him customer service had improved. He did not believe me, but the dishwasher worked beautifully. My life became harder to hide after that. Banks started calling. Investment firms started calling. Private wealth managers started calling. A man from a luxury car dealership somehow found my number and called before I had even considered buying a car. I blocked him out of respect for efficiency. Then something even stranger happened. The money changed how people treated my jobs. Before, when I applied to work one day, managers thought I was desperate. Now they searched my name and assumed I was conducting some secret billionaire experiment. This was useful. I stopped needing to explain why I wanted temporary shifts. People wanted me to work for them because they thought it was publicity. A bakery invited me to make bread for a day. A radio station invited me to guest host. A fashion company asked me to model. A hotel asked me to review operations while also helping at the front desk. A theme park asked me to train as a ride operator because their marketing department thought mystery billionaire works ordinary jobs would go viral. They were correct. Someone had filmed me delivering packages on my motorcycle. Someone else connected it to the property commission. Then an old clip appeared of me washing dishes at Golden Spoon. The internet invented 12 theories in one afternoon. Some people thought I was an actor. Some thought I was the heir to a secret family. Some thought I had lost a bet. One person insisted I was 3 different men because no human being could work that many unrelated jobs. I liked that theory. It was safer than the truth. My mother did not like any theory. She called me and asked why a video titled Billionaire Noodle Boy Exposed had 3 million views. I told her people were exaggerating. She asked if I was a billionaire. I looked at my accounts. Technically, yes. I told her I was doing well. She asked again. I told her I had eaten breakfast. This did not distract her. Eventually, I admitted I had made some very successful deals. She told me not to become arrogant. Then she asked if I was still sleeping enough. I said yes while staring at a calendar that had 14 colored blocks in 3 days. Mothers can detect lies through cellular networks. She told me to rest. I promised. Then I went to work at an amusement park. I wanted ride operator, not because it paid well, because I wanted to know if the system would count it. The answer was yes. For 8 hours, I checked safety bars, directed lines, cleaned seats, and repeated the same cheerful instructions until the sentence lost meaning. One small boy rode the spinning teacups 11 times. By the 7th ride, I respected him. By the 10th, I feared him. At closing, the blue window appeared. Occupation completed. Amusement ride operator. Multiplier. 2. I grinned. The park manager saw me smiling at empty air and decided billionaires were strange. He was correct. I kept collecting. The media attention actually accelerated everything. A production company asked if I would appear on a reality program where wealthy people tried normal jobs. I refused the show. Then I asked if they needed a production assistant. The producer thought I was joking. I was not. I spent a full day carrying equipment, managing release forms, organizing cables, and finding coffee for people who had already forgotten where they put their first coffee. Production assistant unlocked. The next week I worked as a camera operator, then video editor, then sound technician, then host. Each one became another multiplier. At this point, I had enough occupation chains that the blue interface developed a search bar. That was when I knew things had gotten serious. I typed delivery. The system listed 6 categories: food delivery rider, parcel courier, commercial courier, motorcycle courier, same-day specialist, personal messenger. I had unlocked 5. I immediately became obsessed with the 6th. Personal messenger sounded like something from a spy movie. I found the job through a private concierge service used by executives and celebrities. They needed someone to hand-deliver sensitive items, documents, gifts, and things rich people apparently did not trust to normal shipping. The application asked for experience. I listed courier work. It asked for transportation. I listed motorcycle, car, and other upon request. It asked whether I could maintain discretion. I thought about my glowing invisible income system. I checked yes. My first assignment was to deliver a sealed envelope from a lawyer to a retired athlete. My second was a watch. My third was a handwritten apology letter from a businessman to his wife. I did not read it. I did, however, judge the businessman for paying a stranger $300 to carry it 12 blocks. At the end of my full shift, personal messenger unlocked. 2. A week later, 4, then 8, then 16. Because the base rates were already high, the payouts became stupid quickly. I began running one messenger shift every week. 32, 64, 128, 256. Then came the order that made the internet explode. A tech founder was hosting a private event on an island outside the city. A special prototype device had been left in a locked office downtown. His assistant needed it delivered immediately. The concierge service offered an emergency fee. Normal payout, $4,100. My personal messenger multiplier had reached 256. My same-day specialist multiplier also applied because of the deadline. That multiplier was 2. Commercial courier applied because the item was business property. That multiplier was 512. Motorcycle courier applied for the first leg. That multiplier was 64. I did not realize all 4 would combine. The system did. I picked up the prototype in a secure case, rode to a marina, transferred to a charter boat, delivered the case directly into the founder's hands. He opened it, confirmed the serial number. Job complete. My phone froze. Then restarted. Then the payment app asked me to verify my identity again. I did. The payout screen appeared. It was over $137 million for one delivery. I stood on the dock and stared at the amount. The founder saw my expression and asked if something was wrong. I said no. Your delivery app is very generous. He laughed. I did not. The title of the viral article the next morning claimed I had been paid over $1 million per order. Technically true. Extremely incomplete. The internet lost its mind. People began sending screenshots. Delivery drivers tagged me in videos. Financial commentators tried to explain the transaction. One said it had to be a publicity stunt. Another said it was probably equity compensation. A third spent 12 minutes drawing arrows on a screen and concluded that I might secretly own the courier company. I checked. I did not. Yet, the courier company called me that afternoon, not to fire me, to ask if I wanted to invest. I bought 20%. Then I worked another shift for them. Why waste a good chain? My accountant, however, was having a spiritual crisis. His name was Daniel Cho. He was 38, perfectly organized, and had the permanent expression of a man who had spent his life expecting numbers to behave. My numbers did not behave. They attacked him. Daniel sat across from me in a conference room with 6 monitors displaying my income records. He said, "I need you to explain why a courier payment is larger than the company's quarterly revenue." I said I was efficient. He removed his glasses. That was his warning sign. He explained that the payments were legally documented, taxed, cleared, and backed by settlement systems. Every time he followed the money, it arrived through legitimate adjustments, service premiums, performance credits, bonuses, or platform incentives. But the source made no economic sense. The entities paying me were not actually losing the full amount. The balance sheets corrected somewhere else. He said it was as if the financial system itself had decided I deserved the money and was rearranging reality to make the bookkeeping match. I asked if that was a technical accounting term. He stared at me. I asked if the taxes were paid. He said yes. I said then we're doing great. He did not agree. I hired him full-time. His salary was enormous, not because of the system, because I felt guilty. As my wealth grew, I encountered a new problem I had never expected. Some jobs stopped being available because people were intimidated by me. I tried to sign up for a normal grocery stocking shift. The manager recognized me and refused to let me carry boxes. He kept insisting I should sit in the office and have tea. I told him I needed to stock shelves. He thought it was a test. He started stocking shelves himself to impress me. I spent 40 minutes arguing with a man who would not let me do the job he had hired me to do. Finally, I took off my watch, put on a store vest, grabbed a box of cereal, and started. The manager followed me apologizing. Customers took photos. A teenager asked if I was filming a challenge video. I told him no. He asked why I was working there. I said, compound interest. He nodded like that made sense. The shift eventually counted. Grocery stocker multiplier doubled again. I realized I needed anonymity, so I created a ridiculous solution. I started using a disguise. Not a great disguise. Glasses, a cap, a face mask, different hairstyle. It fooled almost nobody who looked carefully, but most people do not expect a billionaire to be assembling office furniture on Thursday morning. I registered temporary work under my legal name because I was not committing fraud. I simply avoided cameras. For a while it worked. I unlocked barista, florist, bike mechanic, stagehand, wedding coordinator, swimming instructor. I had never imagined that being wealthy would turn minimum wage work into stealth missions. The most dangerous occupation was barber. I wanted the chain. I also did not want to destroy anyone's hair. So I took a legitimate training program. For weeks, I practiced on mannequin heads. They suffered bravely. Then I practiced simple cuts under supervision. My first real customer was a college student who said he wanted anything. That is the worst instruction a barber can receive. I gave him a clean shortcut. He liked it. I liked it. The instructor liked it. The system did not. Apparently one haircut did not make a full barber workday. So I spent 8 hours cutting hair. At the end, barber unlocked. I celebrated more than I had after some 6-figure deals. By then, the money itself had become less exciting than seeing a new occupation appear. That was probably not healthy, but it was extremely fun. Then the system gave me another milestone. 100 occupations registered. Occupation synthesis unlocked. I almost fell out of my chair. The description was stranger than the cross-occupation function. Related occupations could now form a higher-tier profession after enough successful completions. For example, line cook plus chef plus food business operator plus menu consultant could synthesize into culinary entrepreneur. Delivery rider plus courier plus logistics worker plus route consultant could synthesize into logistics specialist. Photographer plus editor plus camera operator plus creative director could synthesize into visual media producer. The new profession started at multiplier 2. At first, I was disappointed. I'd spent months building old multipliers into the hundreds or thousands. Why start over? Then I read the next line. Higher tier profession payouts use total project value as base compensation when applicable. I stopped breathing for a second. Total project value, not my fee, the project. I tested culinary entrepreneur first because food was safe. I rented a restaurant space for one day. I designed the menu, bought ingredients, managed staff, cooked, promoted the event, sold every seat. The event generated $40,000 in total revenue. My chef multiplier applied to my chef compensation. My business operator multiplier applied to my owner profit. Then the new culinary entrepreneur profession triggered. Its base compensation used the entire $40,000 project value. Multiplier 2. An additional $80,000 appeared as a performance distribution. The next completed event made the multiplier 4, then 8. I realized higher tier professions were not just larger chains. They were cannons. Logistics specialist was worse. I consulted on a distribution contract for a retailer. The project moved $20 million of inventory over a month. I personally worked one full day mapping routes, testing warehouse flow, writing one delivery route, and supervising dispatch. Logistics specialist counted. Base project value, $20 million, multiplier 2. $40 million appeared as compensation. The next qualified project would be 4 times. Then 8. I called Daniel. He arrived at my apartment carrying a laptop and antacid. I showed him the transaction. He read it. He closed the laptop. Then he asked if I had considered a quiet hobby. I said I had considered gardening. He said that sounded good. I told him I had already unlocked landscaper and was trying to qualify for horticultural consultant. He left. I think he needed air. My public reputation became completely detached from reality. News channels called me the working billionaire. Online fans tracked my occupations like collectibles. There were spreadsheets estimating how many jobs I had done. They were all wrong. One channel created a weekly video called "What is Jin Doing Now?" That week, the answer was fixing a motorcycle, photographing a pet adoption event, consulting for a small bakery, and selling a warehouse. Nobody guessed wedding florist. I liked wedding florist. Flowers do not ask why you are rich. They just sit there and judge you silently. The wedding itself became another insane combo. The original florist got sick. I was already hired as a backup event coordinator because the couple had met me at a previous property showing. I arranged flowers, coordinated vendors, took emergency photos when the second photographer's camera failed, drove the cake from the bakery after the delivery van got a flat tire, then helped serve dinner because the catering company was short-staffed. By the end of the night, I had triggered 6 occupation completions. The system displayed them one after another like a slot machine. Florist doubled, event coordinator doubled, photographer doubled, commercial courier doubled, restaurant worker doubled, event host doubled. Then occupation synthesis appeared. Event operations specialist unlocked, multiplier 2. I stood behind the venue holding a tray of empty champagne glasses and felt more powerful than any man holding champagne glasses should feel. My payout for the wedding became $43 million. The wedding itself had cost $70,000. The couple did not pay the difference. Reality covered it. I gave them a house as a gift anyway, not a mansion. I had learned that giving people absurdly expensive gifts can create more problems than it solves. It was a nice house. They cried. I panicked and left. At this stage, most people would probably have bought a yacht. I did buy a yacht. Accidentally. I wanted to unlock yacht crew. A marina company told me wealthy owners sometimes hired temporary deckhands. I asked to join a crew. The captain laughed because he recognized me. Then he realized I was serious. I spent a full day cleaning decks, handling lines, carrying supplies, and trying not to fall into the water. At the end, yacht deckhand unlocked. I asked how much the yacht cost. The captain told me. I said, "That's less than my delivery last month." He stared at me. I bought the yacht. Then I immediately leased it back to the charter company so I could work on it again without looking completely insane. This unlocked asset operator. Another chain. It also gave me a new principle. I did not need to choose between being the worker and owning the business. I could be both. The system loved roles. So I started building businesses designed around my occupations. I bought a delivery company, not the major one I had invested in, a small local operation with 12 vans. I worked one day as dispatcher, one day as driver, one day as route planner, one day as fleet mechanic, one day as sales representative, one day as operations manager, one day as company director. Each role triggered or advanced a different chain. The company itself became wildly profitable because I could see problems from every angle. Drivers hated one route because the loading order was backward. I fixed it. Mechanics wasted time waiting for approvals. I changed it. Customers had confusing pricing. I simplified it. The staff assumed I was some legendary business genius. I was not. I had simply been every irritated employee in the building. Within 2 months, revenue tripled. I rewarded the staff heavily. Then I discovered something even more dangerous. Company profit distributions could count as income for certain higher-tier operator professions when I had personally worked qualifying days. My multiplier applied to ownership earnings tied to active management. Daniel called this financially offensive. I called it Tuesday. One day, after a routine management shift, the company paid me a quarterly distribution of $2 million. My business operator multiplier applied. Then logistics specialist. Then active investor, which I had recently unlocked by spending a full day evaluating and executing investments. The final amount became so large that my bank temporarily displayed scientific notation. I did not know banking apps could do that. Daniel demanded I stop using my personal account for experimental income. I created a family office. Then I worked there for a full day. Family office manager unlocked. I apologized to Daniel. He said the apology made it worse. The absurdity reached a new level when governments noticed me. Not because I had done anything illegal, because my tax payments were larger than some corporate districts. Officials wanted meetings. Regulators wanted explanations. Economists wanted data. I could explain none of it without saying, a floating blue rectangle rewards me for having too many jobs. So I hired lawyers. Then I spent a full day working with them to organize my holdings, review contracts, and design compliance systems. The blue window appeared. Occupation completed. Corporate administrator, multiplier 2. I was relieved. The lawyers were horrified that I looked relieved. One of them, Attorney Lee, asked if I enjoyed paperwork. I told him not exactly. I enjoyed consequences. He did not ask a second question. At the same time, my personal life became comedy. I could no longer order cheap takeout without delivery drivers recognizing my name. If I tipped normally, people posted that I was stingy. If I tipped heavily, people cried. So I started picking up my own food. This accidentally advanced food courier because I sometimes delivered someone else's order on the way. I could not go shopping normally because store managers tried to close sections for me. I once went into a convenience store at midnight wearing sweatpants. The cashier recognized me, panicked, and bowed so hard he dropped the barcode scanner. I bought instant noodles and a banana. He offered me a free plastic bag. I told him I could afford it. He looked like he might faint. Fame was weird, so I found new entertainment in anonymous jobs. My favorite was mystery shopper. I spent a full day visiting stores, testing service, checking displays, and writing reports. Occupation unlocked. Mystery shopper. Multiplier 2. The irony was perfect. I was a famous person getting paid to secretly shop. By the 5th shift, the multiplier was 32. Then a luxury hotel chain hired me for an executive mystery audit. I booked rooms, ordered room service, tested the spa, checked housekeeping, used the gym, called the front desk with increasingly silly requests. At one point, I asked if they could find me a left-handed umbrella. They could not. I did not deduct points. I am not a monster. The full consulting package was worth $50,000. Mystery shopper multiplier, 32. Hospitality consultant multiplier, 16. Business consultant multiplier, 128. The payment became over $3 billion for sleeping in a hotel. I looked at the bed. The bed looked normal. I touched the pillow. Still normal. I had earned billions by checking whether towels were folded correctly. That was when money fully lost meaning. I stopped measuring purchases by price. I measured them by jobs. A sports car cost less than one photography afternoon. A mansion cost less than a commercial courier run. A private plane cost less than a consulting day. A corporation could cost less than a successful logistics project. I did not like that feeling. So I created a rule for myself. No buying things just because I could. Every purchase needed a reason. A joke, or a job. This was not a financially responsible rule, but it was better than nothing. I bought a small farm because I wanted farmer. I knew nothing about farming. That was corrected quickly by a 68-year-old woman named Mrs. Kwan who treated my billionaire status with complete indifference. On my first morning, she handed me gloves and told me to stop standing around. I planted seedlings, moved feed, repaired fencing, cleaned equipment, chased a chicken that had developed personal hatred for me. The chicken won the first 3 rounds. By sunset, I was exhausted. Mrs. Kwan inspected my work. She said, "Not terrible." That compliment meant more to me than several business awards I had recently received. The system appeared. Occupation completed. Farm worker. Multiplier 2. I came back the next week. Then again. Soon I unlocked farmer. Then farm operator. Then agricultural logistics. One small farm became an absurd occupation factory. I loved it. The chickens still hated me. I named it chairman. Chairman attacked expensive shoes without discrimination. I respected that. One afternoon while repairing a greenhouse, the blue interface suddenly opened without me completing a shift. That had never happened before. I froze. A new message appeared. Earning acceleration threshold reached. Total registered multipliers exceed system baseline. Adaptive challenge mode available. I read the message slowly. Challenge mode. That sounded unnecessary. I tried to close it. The window stayed. Another line appeared. Future multipliers above threshold may require occupational challenges. I stared at it. There it was. The catch. I had wondered when the system would stop giving me free exponential growth. Apparently the answer was after I became so rich that numbers needed abbreviations. The first challenge appeared immediately. Restaurant Worker Multiplier Advancement Challenge. Current multiplier 65,536. Requirement: complete 1 full restaurant shift with customer satisfaction above 95% and no use of personal wealth ownership authority, or staff favoritism. Reward multiplier doubles. Failure multiplier remains unchanged. I smiled. This did not sound scary. It sounded fun. I had started at Golden Spoon. Now the system wanted me to go back. The only problem was that Golden Spoon had changed. After my investment, Mr. Han had expanded. The tiny restaurant now occupied 3 storefronts. There was new equipment, new staff, a waiting list on weekends because internet tourists visited the place where Jin Park started. My old minimum wage job had become a tourist attraction, and I had to complete a normal shift without anyone treating me differently. That was impossible. So I did the most reasonable thing. I asked Mr. Han to fire me publicly. He said, "What?" I told him it was important. He asked if I had finally lost my mind. I said probably, but not for this reason. We designed a plan. I would work one shift at a new Golden Spoon branch in another district where the staff had never met me. No special treatment. No manager intervention. No money. No shortcuts. I wore a normal uniform. Cap low. Mask on. Name tag said Jin. At first, everything went perfectly. I wiped tables, carried food, refilled water, washed dishes. Then a customer recognized my voice. Not my face, my voice. Apparently the reality show clips had become too popular. A teenager stared at me while I asked if he needed extra napkins. Then his eyes widened. He whispered my name. I whispered no. He pulled out his phone. I reacted on instinct. I handed him a tray. He froze. I told him I needed help carrying empty bowls. He was so confused that he actually carried them. For 30 seconds I had turned a fan into unpaid labor. Then his mother recognized me. The table exploded. People stood. Phones appeared. The branch manager ran out of the kitchen. I thought the challenge was over. Then I saw the satisfaction meter. 96%. The system did not care about anonymity. It cared about service. So I stopped hiding. I finished the shift in front of 50 customers who were now treating dinner like a live event. I took orders, served dishes, cleaned spills. A child asked for a photo. I told him after I delivered table 7's noodles. He saluted. The whole restaurant began cheering every time I carried a tray. It was ridiculous. It was also strangely moving. I had spent months chasing bigger numbers through stranger jobs. But this was the same work I had done when I was broke. Same dishes, same hot kitchen, same sore feet. Only now the customers were filming. At closing, the satisfaction meter showed 98%. Challenge complete. Restaurant worker income multiplier doubled. Current multiplier 131,072. Then another message appeared. Challenge bonus unlocked. Legacy occupation resonance. Because restaurant worker was my first registered occupation, all food service occupations received a temporary doubling. I stared at the screen. Chef, line cook, bar staff, bartender, food business operator, culinary entrepreneur. All doubled for the next qualifying day. I slowly turned toward the kitchen. Mr. Han had arrived and was standing by the door. I asked him one question. "Are we open tomorrow?" He saw my face. He immediately said, "I don't like that look." He was right not to. The next morning, Golden Spoon became the most dangerous restaurant in the financial system. Mr. Han did not know that. He only knew I had rented the entire dining room for a private event, hired extra kitchen staff, and asked him to let me handle as many roles as legally possible. He watched me tie an apron. Then he watched 2 lawyers enter and sit in the corner. Then Daniel arrived carrying 3 laptops. Mr. Han pointed at them. "Why does lunch need lawyers?" I told him it was safer not to ask. The plan was simple. I would run one full-day food event. I would work as chef, restaurant worker, food business operator, event host, menu consultant, and because I was offering a special meal package directly to corporate clients, commission salesmen, my temporary legacy bonus would double every food service multiplier before the system calculated the combined payout. Even Daniel did not know what that meant. He had built a spreadsheet. The spreadsheet gave up. One cell simply displayed an error. I considered that a warning from mathematics. The event itself was called Golden Spoon Original Night, even though it started at noon and lasted 10 hours. I wanted customers who had eaten at the old tiny restaurant years ago. People signed up immediately. The menu was not fancy. That was the point. Spicy pork, fried dumplings, noodles, rice, soup, the same kinds of food I had carried when I was making minimum wage, but I treated every plate like the universe was grading me. For the first 2 hours, I worked the kitchen. Then a server got overwhelmed, so I moved to the dining room. Then a supplier delivered the wrong mushrooms. I became procurement manager for 45 minutes. That occupation had not been part of the plan, but I had already unlocked it months ago, so I accepted the bonus. Then the point-of-sale system stopped printing tickets. I fixed it. Information technology support tried to unlock. I stared at the blue window while holding a screwdriver. The system displayed Insufficient qualifying duration. I actually felt offended. Apparently rebooting one stubborn tablet did not make me an information technology professional. Fair enough. By evening, we were packed. A group of office workers recognized me and asked whether the rumors were true that I had made over $100 million delivering a box. I told them the box was very punctual. They did not understand. I did not explain. At 9, the final customers left. At 10, I helped clean. At 11, I clocked out. The blue interface appeared. Restaurant worker challenge completion verified. Chef occupation completed. Restaurant worker occupation completed. Food business operator occupation completed. Event host occupation completed. Menu consultant occupation completed. Commission salesman occupation completed. Then the temporary food service residence applied. The numbers started calculating. Daniel's phone buzzed. Then his laptop chimed. Then another laptop. Then all three made different alert sounds at the same time. He looked like a man trapped inside an orchestra. I checked my account. The total payout was so large that the bank had separated it into multiple settlement entries. I counted the zeros. Stopped. Started again. Stopped. Daniel asked me not to say the number out loud. I respected his wishes. Mr. Han walked over. He asked how much I had made. Daniel said, "Please don't." Mr. Han looked at me. I said, "Enough to cover lunch." Mr. Han threw a napkin at my face. The best part was not the money. The system awarded a new synthesis, hospitality entrepreneur, multiplier. 2. I laughed. Daniel did not. Then challenge mode showed its personality. The challenges were not just work harder. They were weirdly specific. Photographer Advancement Challenge. Complete a full professional shoot using equipment with total purchase value under $500. No assistant. No studio lighting. Client satisfaction above 90%. I owned camera equipment worth more than some apartments. The system wanted me to use bargain gear. I loved it. I bought a used entry-level camera, 1 cheap lens, 2 desk lamps, white poster board, tape, and a shower curtain. The cashier asked if I was doing arts and crafts. I told him close enough. My client was a startup selling luxury watches. Their marketing manager nearly had a heart attack when I arrived with a camera bag smaller than her lunch. She asked where the rest of my equipment was. I pointed at the desk lamps. She thought I was joking. I was not. The shoot took all day. I bounced light off walls. Used the shower curtain as diffusion, used black cardboard to shape reflections, used a phone flashlight for highlights. At one point, an intern held a pizza box outside the frame because I needed a larger reflector. The system said no assistant. I argued mentally that he was not assisting. He was holding dinner. The system accepted this. I felt powerful. The final photos looked expensive. The client satisfaction score hit 97%. Challenge complete. Photographer multiplier doubled. Challenge bonus, resourcefulness premium unlocked. For my next photography payment, lower production cost increased my effective multiplier. I looked at the $500 setup, then at the watches, then at Daniel. He said, "I know that face." Stop. I did not stop. I repeated the low budget method on a massive advertising campaign. The campaign budget was $12 million. My production cost was $482 because I reused tape. The resourcefulness premium multiplied the difference. My payout crossed into another financial dimension. The startup's chief executive sent me a thank you gift. It was a camera worth $20,000. I sold it, not because I needed the money, because the cheap camera had earned my respect. It went into a glass case in my office labeled the $400 monster. Daniel removed the label. I put it back. Mechanic challenge was next. Complete a full shift repairing vehicles without replacing any part that can reasonably be repaired. Customer comeback rate must remain 0 for 30 days. This was not instant, so the multiplier could not advance until the condition cleared. For the first time, the system forced me to wait. I hated waiting. Not because I was impatient, because waiting could not be scheduled into a color-coded shift. So I picked an old taxi fleet. Daeho supervised me. We repaired cracked wiring instead of replacing harnesses, rebuilt a starter, cleaned sensors, repaired a seat motor using a tiny gear that Daeho found in a drawer older than me. One taxi had a side mirror held together by tape. I repaired the housing. The driver stared at it like I had healed an animal. At the end of the day, the challenge status said pending. 30 days. I groaned. Daeho smiled. He said maybe the system was teaching me patience. I asked how he knew about the system. He said, "You stare at empty air and then make money." I'm not stupid. I considered this. Apparently my secret was less secret than I thought. I asked if he believed me. He said no. But he also said he had stopped trying to explain my paychecks. Fair. The realtor challenge was even funnier. Sell or lease a property that has been rejected by at least 10 previous clients. No price reduction below current market appraisal. No personal purchase. No gifts to buyer. No use of celebrity status in marketing. The system had chosen violence. Minji found me a property that seemed cursed by interior design. It was a narrow 3-story house squeezed between 2 buildings. The front door opened directly toward a staircase. The living room had 1 window. The kitchen counter was triangular. The second-floor hallway turned twice for no reason. The rooftop had an excellent view of 3 air conditioning units. 14 clients had already rejected it. One had written, "I felt the building judging me." Perfect. I could not lower the price. I could not use my name. So I changed the target customer. Everyone had marketed it as a family home. It was terrible for a family, but it had 3 separated floors, strong sound insulation, commercial-grade power from a previous renovation, and a rooftop. I marketed it to a small audio production company. First floor, reception and editing. Second floor, recording booths. Third floor, office and break room. Rooftop. Place to remember sunlight exists. A podcast studio leased it in 2 days. Challenge complete. Realtor multiplier doubled. Then the system gave me a creativity bonus. A failed property conversion premium would apply to my next difficult listing. Minji saw my smile. She immediately said no. I asked what. She said, "Whatever you're thinking." I told her I had not said anything. She said that was the problem. 2 weeks later, we sold an abandoned indoor mini-golf center to a company that turned it into a themed office. I photographed the fake volcano, wrote the listing, consulted on redevelopment, negotiated the deal, sold the furniture separately, hosted the launch. Somehow, the system classified part of the day as recreational facility consultant. I unlocked another occupation while trying to advance 4 others. My life had become a machine that produced job titles accidentally. Then I found the most embarrassing challenge yet. Salesman Advancement Challenge. Sell a product with no discount, no celebrity endorsement, no bundle, and no misleading claims. Product must be selected randomly from participating inventory. I accepted at an electronics store. The system selected the product, a purple automatic egg cooker shaped like a chicken. I stared at it. It stared at me. The machine had 1 button. You added eggs and water. It made a noise when they were done. That was the entire product. I had to sell at least 50 units during a full shift. No discount. No celebrity endorsement. I could not say, "Buy this because I am Jin Park." So I became spiritually connected to eggs. I tested the machine. I learned water measurements. Soft-boiled, medium, hard-boiled. I timed it. I discovered it could steam dumplings if you ignored the manual. I did not advertise that because the manufacturer would probably attack me. Then I set up a demonstration. I did not pressure anyone. I simply cooked eggs. The smell did half the job. People came over. I explained exactly what it did. No exaggeration. 1 button. Tiny footprint. Good for students. Good for office kitchens. Good for people who could somehow burn water. By lunch, I sold 17. By 4, 31. By 7, 46. The store closed at 8. I needed 4 more. Then a family arrived. Mother, father, 3 children. The youngest child saw the purple chicken-shaped machine and became emotionally attached to it. I did not exploit this. The machine exploited it itself. The family bought 2. 48. At 7:48, a tired office worker bought 1. 49. At 7:55, nobody was near the display. I could feel the challenge laughing at me. Then the store security guard walked over. He had watched me boil eggs all day. He asked if the machine really worked. I said yes. He said his apartment had no stove because he was renovating. I showed him the measuring cup. He bought 1. 50. The blue window exploded into tiny golden particles. I almost hugged the security guard. Instead, I gave him the demonstration eggs. Challenge complete. Commission salesman multiplier doubled. Special reward, honest pitch bonus. Future sales multipliers receive a temporary increase when refund rate remains below 1%. I became one of the richest people alive by selling the 50th purple chicken egg cooker to a security guard. No business school could teach this. Challenge mode kept me interested because money alone no longer could. I became a barista and had to complete a shift where every latte art order used a different design. Heart, leaf, swan, bear. 1 cup looked like a haunted potato. The customer said it was cute. I accepted victory. I worked as a tour guide with a challenge that banned prepared scripts. I had to answer live questions for 8 hours. A child asked why the city hall had so many windows. I said because walls are depressing. His father laughed. The system counted the answer as low-confidence factual commentary but did not penalize satisfaction. I worked as a personal trainer and had to improve a group's workout completion rate without raising intensity. so I turned the gym circuit into a points competition. Middle-aged accountants became terrifying when offered team badges. One man completed lunges with the focus of a warrior protecting his clan. Trainer multiplier doubled. I worked as a florist and had to create arrangements using only locally available plants under a strict budget. I discovered ornamental cabbage. It looked ridiculous. Then I used it in an arrangement and somehow made it look expensive. Florist multiplier doubled. I worked as a hotel housekeeper and had to clean rooms to inspection standard with no automated tools. That challenge humbled me. Rich people leave astonishing messes. At one point, I found a sock in a lamp. Not on a lamp, inside the lamp. I did not ask. Housekeeping multiplier doubled. Every challenge reminded me why I had started. The system was not rewarding titles. It was rewarding actual completed work. The money might be impossible, but the shift still had to be real. That mattered. Then I discovered a profession I had been avoiding. Entertainer. Not because I hated performing, because I was terrible at it. A streaming platform invited me to appear in a charity variety show. The premise was simple. Celebrities tried random jobs selected by spinning a wheel. I almost rejected it because working jobs on camera would make my life even more public. Then I saw the wheel categories. Baker, mascot performer, dance instructor, game show host, street magician, children's party entertainer. I had 4 of those unlocked. 2 were missing. This was not television. This was a profession buffet. I accepted. My first spin landed on mascot performer. I wore a giant bear costume for 4 hours at an outdoor festival. The head weighed as much as a microwave. Visibility was approximately 3%. Children attacked me with hugs. One child punched my stomach to see if I was real. I gave him a thumbs up because I had no other response. Then I had to perform a choreographed dance. I could not see my feet. The bear's head rotated slightly and stayed that way, so for 2 minutes I danced while looking sideways. The crowd loved it. The clip went viral. The system did not unlock mascot performer because the segment was only 4 hours. I was furious. So the next weekend I secretly worked a full mascot shift at a baseball stadium. 8 hours. Photos. Dancing. Crowd interaction. Staircases. Have you ever climbed stadium stairs wearing a giant foam bear head? Do not. At the end, mascot performer unlocked. I took off the costume and bowed to it. Then came street magician. I had no magic skills. I learned basic card tricks, coin tricks, rope tricks. Nothing dangerous. My first hour was painful. People could see exactly how one trick worked. A 12-year-old explained it to me. I thanked him for the feedback. By afternoon, I improved. I learned that magic was less about secret technique and more about confidence, timing, and getting people to look at the wrong hand. That sounded suspiciously similar to sales. By the end of a full day, I had a crowd. A coin vanished. A card appeared inside a sealed envelope. A little girl screamed like I had broken physics. The system unlocked street magician. I immediately wondered whether magic consultant existed. Daniel told me to stop. I did not. The variety show aired later. My sideways bear dance became a meme. Someone added dramatic orchestra music. Someone edited me fighting a giant robot. Someone used the clip in a stock market video to represent inflation. I had no idea why. My public image became impossible to control, so I stopped trying. Instead, I leaned into the silliness. I created a public channel, not to reveal the system, just to show jobs. Each video followed one rule. I worked a real shift and respected the people who did it every day. No fake challenge edits. No pretending one day made me an expert. No humiliating workers. The first video was me returning to warehouse picking. It received 20 million views. The second was bakery assistant. The third was garbage collection. That one changed me. Garbage collection is brutally physical. Early start. Heavy bins. Traffic. Weather. Smells that should be classified as weapons. By the end of the shift, I was destroyed. The sanitation crew barely looked tired. I gained respect and an occupation multiplier. The internet loved the video because I looked genuinely miserable. Comments called it my best acting. It was not acting. I could still smell the truck in my soul. My channel income also triggered. Content creator unlocked. Then host. Then producer, then media business operator. I had accidentally built a new stack of scalable professions. Advertising revenue on the first month was huge. Then content creator multiplier applied. Then media operator. Then active business owner. Then entertainer on eligible episodes. My video about cleaning city bins earned more than the national box office of several films. I sent large bonuses to every worker who appeared. Then the bonuses somehow generated more attention, which created more views, which increased revenue again. Daniel said I had created a loop. I told him not to use scary words. He said feedback cycle. I said that was worse. My channel introduced me to strange businesses. A professional escape room company invited me to test a new room. I asked if escape room tester was an occupation. The system did not answer hypothetical questions, so I worked a full day for them, testing puzzles, resetting rooms, observing customers, documenting failures. At the end, attraction tester unlocked. I laughed for 5 minutes. A mattress company hired me as a product evaluator. That was the day I earned millions by lying down professionally. It was harder than it sounds. I tested firmness, edge support, temperature, noise, motion transfer. I wrote reports. I did not sleep. The system unlocked consumer product tester. I immediately apologized to every product reviewer I had ever mocked. Then I realized this category could apply to expensive products. Cars, computers, cameras, furniture, appliances. The multiplier started at 2. I spent 3 months quietly building it. 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, 128, 256, 512. Then a luxury electric car company hired me for a full day evaluation of a new prototype. Base consulting and testing contract, $100,000. Product tester multiplier, 512. Automotive consultant, 64. Driver evaluator, 32. Content producer also applied because they licensed my review footage for internal training. I completed the day. The payout crossed $1 billion. For driving around, checking cup holders, and complaining that one button was in a stupid location. The engineering team fixed the button. I felt powerful. The world began sending me stranger invitations. A shoe company wanted me to test running shoes. A luggage brand wanted me to take suitcases through an airport. A chair company wanted me to sit for 8 hours. I declined the chair company, not because it was silly, because I had already done mattress tester and needed cardio. Then came the job that created a new public obsession. A premium delivery platform launched a publicity campaign offering ultra-fast personal delivery for wealthy clients. They asked me to perform the first route. I agreed because my delivery chains had been idle while I focused on challenges. My personal messenger multiplier was now 512. Same-day specialist had climbed to 128. Commercial courier, 4,096. Motorcycle courier, 512. Logistics specialist, 64. The order was ridiculous. Deliver 1 birthday cake across the city in under 50 minutes. The cake cost $200. The delivery base fee was $5,000 because it was a launch stunt. I checked the cake. 3 layers, fresh cream, tiny sugar flowers. A cake designed specifically to die on a motorcycle. I refused the motorcycle. The platform said speed mattered. I said cake mattered more. I selected a compact van with active suspension and refrigerated storage. That weakened one multiplier because motorcycle courier would not apply. Fine. I was not going to become famous for turning cake into soup. Traffic was terrible. A parade blocked the main avenue. The platform coordinator panicked. I did not. I had worked route planning. I knew loading zones, service roads, parking structures. I cut through a legal commercial access route, crossed 2 blocks on foot with the cake inside a stabilized carrier, transferred into another company vehicle that Daniel had positioned only because I had hired him as operational support for the publicity event, and reached the destination with 4 minutes left. The family opened the box. Perfect cake. The birthday girl clapped. Delivery complete. The payment notification appeared. The platform's public display had been set up to reveal my payout as part of the stunt. This was their mistake. The number rolled upward. 5,000. Then multipliers applied. The display passed 1 million. The crowd cheered. 10 million. People stopped cheering. 100 million. The platform executive's smile vanished. 1 billion. A camera operator lowered his camera just to look with his own eyes. The final payout settled above $13 billion for delivering 1 birthday cake. The internet broke. Headlines said I had earned millions per order. Again, technically true. A commentator asked whether I had become the highest paid delivery driver in history. Probably. A child on social media calculated that 1 minute of my delivery had earned more than his school cost to build. I did not like that comparison, so I donated a large amount to education and logistics worker funds. The donation generated positive publicity. Positive publicity increased my channel revenue. Channel revenue multiplied. The charitable announcement itself counted as a media production. More multipliers. I gave away money and somehow became richer. Daniel looked at the numbers and said, "You have defeated charity." I told him that sentence was horrible. He agreed. We donated more. That night I opened the system expecting another milestone. I got one. 200 occupations registered. Advanced Challenge Network unlocked. I leaned forward. The window changed. For the first time, it displayed a map, not of locations, of professions. Hundreds of glowing nodes connected by lines. Some I recognized. Chef linked to restaurant worker, food operator, caterer, culinary entrepreneur. Courier linked to logistics, dispatcher, route planner, fleet operator, photographer linked to camera operator, editor, producer, creative director. Dozens of my occupations formed clusters. But most of the map was dark. Locked professions, higher tiers, special categories. At the center of the map, one enormous node was covered by question marks. I tapped it. Requirement unavailable. Then a message appeared. To unlock universal worker classification, complete 300 distinct occupations and 10 master tier syntheses. I stared at it. Universal worker. The name was absurd. The requirement was worse. I had 200 occupations. I needed 100 more. Daniel walked in carrying coffee. He saw my expression. He stopped. No, I had not said anything. He pointed at me. Whatever the rectangle told you, no. I smiled. He put the coffee down and left the room. I opened a job search site. 100 more jobs. I had never been more excited. Getting from 200 occupations to 300 sounded easy until I reviewed what I had already done. I had attacked the normal job market like a vacuum cleaner. Retail, food, delivery, property, automotive, media, events, hotels, warehouses, farms, offices. I had even spent one full day as a professional queue manager at a convention, which was a real occupation and also proof that human civilization had become too complicated. The remaining easy jobs were getting weird, so I created something I called the 100 shift list. Daniel called it a cry for help. The rule was simple. Every new occupation had to be legitimate. I needed to perform real work. A full qualifying shift. No fake companies created just to give me titles. No paying someone to pretend I was employed. No using ownership power to force the system. The system had already rejected several cheap tricks. I once spent a day calling myself executive snack strategist while choosing office snacks. Nothing happened. The blue interface apparently had dignity. My first new job was bookstore clerk. I expected peaceful shelves and quiet customers. Instead, I spent 8 hours answering questions like, do you have that blue book I saw online? Which blue book? No title. No author. Just blue. I found it. I still do not know how. Bookstore clerk unlocked. Next came library assistant. Different profession. I shelved returns, helped patrons use printers, organized holds, and learned that the most dangerous sentence in a library is, I only changed one setting. A man had somehow made the public printer produce pages upside down. Nobody knew how. Library assistant unlocked. Then museum attendant. I stood near paintings and politely told visitors not to touch them. One man moved his hand toward a sculpture 4 separate times. Each time I appeared beside him. By the 4th time, he thought I could teleport. Museum attendant unlocked. Then museum guide. Different profession. I learned a full route and gave tours for a day. A child asked why one abstract painting looked like spilled ketchup. The official guide notes described it as a confrontation between order and emotional rupture. I preferred the child's version. Museum guide unlocked. I worked at an aquarium next, not as a marine biologist. I know my limits. I was visitor operations staff. I directed school groups, cleaned viewing areas, answered basic questions, and spent 3 hours beside a stingray touch pool. A ray splashed me, then did it again, then waited until I leaned closer and did it a 3rd time. Aquarium attendant unlocked. I named the ray chairman too. Chairman the chicken would have hated him. At a bowling alley I worked front desk, then lane attendant. Then, after proper training with their technician, bowling equipment assistant. The pin setter looked like a machine designed to punish curiosity. I did not put my hands anywhere near moving parts. The system respected workplace safety. Bowling alley attendant unlocked. Equipment assistant unlocked. At an ice rink, I rented skates. Then I learned basic resurfacing operations under supervision. Ice rink attendant unlocked. At a climbing gym, I worked check-in and equipment inspection. At a trampoline park, I supervised safety. At an arcade, I handled prize redemption. Arcade attendant was one of my favorite shifts because I watched a 10-year-old spend 3,000 tickets on a plastic sword and hold it like he had inherited a kingdom. I understood him. Multipliers are just adult tickets. Then I found beekeeping assistant. This was a mistake. I wore protective gear. I followed instructions. I stayed calm. The bees did not care about my net worth. One bee found the tiny gap between my glove and sleeve and delivered a performance review directly to my wrist. I did not scream. I made a sound I will describe as executive-level surprise. The beekeeper, Mrs. Yoon, laughed for almost a minute. At the end of the shift, beekeeping assistant unlocked. I bought honey, a lot of honey, not the company. I was learning. I worked at a pottery studio, clay instructor assistant, unlocked. I worked at a print shop, print production operator, unlocked. I spent a day helping frame artwork, picture framer, unlocked. I assembled exhibition booths, trade show installer, unlocked. I worked a full shift as a sign spinner for a housing development. That one went viral instantly because someone recognized me standing beside a road rotating an arrow that said new homes this way. People stopped to take photos. Traffic became worse. The developer begged me to stop attracting attention. The system required a full shift. I kept spinning. By hour 6, my shoulders were on fire. By hour 8, I had developed techniques: basic spin, reverse spin, underarm transfer, dramatic point. I became too powerful. Sign promoter unlocked. The base pay was tiny. My multiplier started at 2. I was delighted. Daniel asked why I cared. I told him every empire needs an arrow. He did not respond. I worked as a parking valet. That required trust. The company was nervous about letting me do it because every customer recognized me. One man handed me the key to an old compact car and apologized that it was not expensive. I told him cars only need to move and stop. His car did both. Excellent car. Another customer arrived in a supercar and spent 5 minutes explaining the launch control system. I told him I was parking at 20 meters away. He continued explaining. I parked it. Valet unlocked. I worked as coat check attendant at a theater. I learned that people can forget what their own coat looks like after 3 hours. Unlocked. I worked as theater usher. Unlocked. I worked backstage changing set pieces. Stagehand was already active, so its multiplier advanced. Then I spent a full shift operating subtitles for a live foreign language performance under supervision. Performance caption operator unlocked. That one surprised me. The system had become extremely specific. I began respecting its taxonomy. At job 237, I found a temporary position at a costume rental warehouse. I sorted costumes, cleaned pieces, checked inventory, repaired simple fasteners. Costume technician unlocked. There were 6 identical prince jackets, 13 wizard robes, 1 giant carrot suit, and a full-body lobster costume. I tried on the lobster during lunch. No reason. A staff member took a photo. The photo leaked. For 2 weeks, the internet referred to me as Lobster Jin. I had been a billionaire, a viral delivery driver, a media personality, a property investor. None of that mattered. The lobster won. I accepted defeat. At 240, I became a professional conference badge printer. The system classified me as event registration specialist. At 241, I worked at a translation booth organizing materials and schedules. Language services coordinator. At 242, I worked as an auction floor assistant. Then I wanted auctioneer. That required actual skill. Auctioneers speak quickly, but speed is not the main problem. The problem is controlling a room, tracking bids, keeping rhythm, watching 6 people at once, and not accidentally selling a chair to someone scratching his nose. I trained. Then a charity auction let me handle lower value items for a full event. I sold paintings, restaurant vouchers, sports memorabilia, a vacation package. At first I was too slow. Then something clicked. The room became a game. I saw hands, eye contact, hesitation, competition. My sales experience helped. My event host experience helped. My comedy instincts helped. A signed baseball expected to sell for $2,000 reached $11,000 because 2 dentists refused to lose to each other. Auctioneer unlocked. The auction generated over $1 million for charity. Then my occupation multiplier created additional compensation. I donated that too, which caused more press, which caused more media revenue. Daniel called me and said, "You found the loop again." I said I had not done it on purpose. He said that made it worse. Job 245 was weather presenter. A local station invited me for a full-day special because my job challenge channel was popular. I was not a meteorologist. I only presented forecasts prepared by their team. This seemed easy. It was not. The green screen showed nothing behind me. I had to point at cities that existed only on a monitor. During rehearsal, I pointed to the wrong side of the screen and announced rain over the ocean. The producer told me to move left. I moved right. By the final broadcast, I improved. I explained a heat wave, showed overnight temperatures, warned viewers about afternoon storms. Then I accidentally blocked the entire 5-day forecast with my body. Weather presenter unlocked anyway. The clip became a meme titled "Billionaire Defeats Climate Map." I hated the title. I respected the edit. Job 248 was radio traffic announcer. I spent the morning receiving traffic reports and reading updates. My courier experience made me strangely good at it. I knew which routes actually mattered. I could visualize the city. When a truck stalled near a tunnel, I suggested alternate roads faster than the producer expected. Traffic presenter unlocked. Then the station manager asked if I wanted a regular segment. I said no. I had 51 occupations left. Job 250 was professional game commentator. An esports league hired me for a full broadcast because I had played the game casually and had hosting experience. I studied for days, teams, players, strategies, recent matches. I refused to be the rich guest who showed up unprepared. The match was chaos. My co-commentator spoke at incredible speed. I tried to keep up. Then one player made a ridiculous comeback from almost no health. I forgot professional language and yelled, "How is he still alive?" The audience loved it. Esports commentator unlocked. Then I worked as tournament bracket coordinator. Then player check-in official. Then stage interviewer. 3 more. The job hunt became a live series. Viewers suggested real occupations. I rejected dangerous ones I was not qualified for. I rejected fake ones. I rejected professional billionaire because that sounded unbearable. But I accepted interesting ones. Candle maker. I spent a day measuring fragrance, preparing molds, trimming wicks, and learning that melted wax finds every surface except the one you want. Unlocked. Soap production assistant. Unlocked. Chocolate maker assistant. Unlocked. Coffee roastery assistant. Unlocked. Tea blender assistant. Unlocked. I smelled amazing for an entire week. Then I worked at a fish market and corrected that immediately. Seafood market worker. Unlocked. I worked at a wholesale flower market before sunrise. Wholesale floral buyer. Unlocked. I worked as a produce quality inspector for a distributor. Unlocked. I worked in a bakery packaging line. Unlocked. I became fascinated by how many invisible jobs existed behind ordinary things. A loaf of bread passed through farming, milling, logistics, baking, packaging, retail, delivery, marketing, accounting, maintenance, cleaning, and a dozen other occupations before someone made toast. The system had turned the economy into a giant skill tree. I wanted every branch. At 267, the Advanced Challenge Network interrupted me again. Master synthesis opportunity detected. Eligible cluster. Property services. Requirements met. Realtor. Property photographer. Property consultant. Sales negotiator. Building evaluator. Real estate operator, property marketer. I accepted. The new profession appeared. Property venture specialist, multiplier 2. Master tier qualification condition. Complete a full redevelopment cycle with measurable value increase and no personal residence use. I immediately called Min-ji. She answered by saying, "What did the rectangle do now?" Everyone was getting too comfortable with this. I told her I needed a terrible building. She said she had several. We chose an old commercial building near a train station. Not dangerous, not structurally broken, just ugly. It had brown tile, narrow offices, dim hallways, and lighting that made every person look tired. The building was not bad. It was sad. Perfect. I did not simply buy and flip it. I needed a real redevelopment cycle. I evaluated it, created a new tenant plan, hired architects, worked directly with the property team, photographed progress, handled leasing strategy, negotiated vendor contracts, spent full qualifying days in multiple roles. The renovation took months, but I rotated other occupations while it progressed. We turned the ground floor into food and retail, second floor into flexible offices, upper floors into small creative studios. The rooftop became a garden and event space. When the project reopened, occupancy hit 90%. The appraised value rose dramatically. Master qualification complete. Property venture specialist upgraded to master tier profession. Property developer. The multiplier reset? No. It carried forward. 2 became 4 immediately through synthesis reward. More importantly, the base compensation could use total value created. The building's value increase was $30 million. My property developer multiplier, 4. Additional system compensation, $120 million. That was tiny by my standards now, but it was only multiplier 4. I felt the old excitement again. A new money tree, a bigger species. Then logistics produced a master profession. Media produced another. Hospitality another. Each took real projects. Each created base values in the millions or billions. Each started low and doubled. I needed 10 master tier syntheses for universal worker. The hunt for occupations and master professions began overlapping. I became job 271 while working on a master project, construction project liaison, then procurement lead, then tenant coordinator, then launch event producer. I gained 4 new occupations just from one building. At 278, I worked at a bicycle rental shop, rental attendant. At 279, I became tour bicycle guide. At 280, I worked as a trail cleanup coordinator. At 281, I assisted an urban gardening program. Community garden worker. I still preferred Mrs. Kwon's farm because no city garden had chairman. At 282, I worked at a pet hotel. Pet care attendant. Dogs liked me. Cats reviewed me. One cat stared at me for 7 hours with the expression Daniel used when looking at my income reports. Pet care attendant unlocked. At 283, dog groomer assistant. I did not become full groomer. I respected professionals too much. Assistant still counted. At 284, I worked at a photography equipment rental counter, rental specialist. At 285, studio equipment technician. At 286, live stream technical operator. At 287, teleprompter operator. That job is more stressful than people think. If I scroll too fast, the speaker panics. Too slow, awkward silence. I spent a full day controlling the speed of other people's confidence. Unlocked. At 288, I became a voiceover booth director for simple corporate recordings after training with a production team. Not film director. Not yet. At 289, casting session coordinator. At 290, location scout. Location scout was fun because I was paid to wander around looking for places that looked like other places. One production needed expensive office but slightly evil. I found a law firm lobby. They did not appreciate the description. The production loved it. Location scout unlocked. 10 occupations left. The internet knew. My audience had been tracking the public list. They did not know about the universal worker requirement, but they knew I was approaching 300. People began suggesting what job 300 should be. Firefighter. No, that is not a one-day hobby. Pilot. I was not qualified. Doctor. Absolutely not. Teacher. I could tutor, but a real teacher deserved more respect than me chasing a pop-up for one shift. Professional clown. Possible. Daniel voted for clown. I ignored him. Job 291 became cinema projection technician assistant. 292, ticketing supervisor. 293, popcorn machine operator. The system classified that as cinema concessions worker. I had underestimated the machine. Popcorn multiplies. You look away for 4 seconds and suddenly the container is full. I respected it. 294 was tailor assistant. I spent a day measuring, pinning, organizing fabric, pressing seams, and learning how much skill hides inside a jacket. 295 was shoe repair assistant. 296 watch shop service coordinator. I did not repair watches. Those tiny gears frightened me more than commercial vehicles. 297 was furniture restoration assistant. 298 was antique shop clerk. Customers at antique shops ask questions with impossible answers. How old do you think this feels? I did not know objects had emotional birthdays. 299 was cake decorator. I had cooking experience, but decoration was another universe. I practiced piping, borders, flowers, lettering. My first happy birthday looked like Harpy Bird Day. I ate the evidence. By the end of the shift, I could decorate simple cakes. Cake decorator unlocked. Then I had one occupation left. The system map showed 299 glowing nodes. My audience expected something huge. I considered professional race driver after training. Too dramatic. I considered luxury hotel general manager. Already too close to hospitality. I considered film actor. Possible, but annoying. Then I saw a temporary job posting outside a shopping center. Weekend children's train operator. One of those tiny electric trains that drives in circles through a mall. I stared at the listing. A little red engine. 3 passenger cars. Maximum speed slightly faster than walking. 8-hour shift. Training provided. I smiled. Perfect. My 300th occupation would be driving a fake train past a food court. The operator recognized me during orientation. He asked if this was for my channel. I said yes. He asked if I had ever driven one. I said no. He showed me the controls. Simple. Speed, brake, bell, emergency stop, safety checks, passenger rules. The train followed a fixed route through the shopping center. I wore a blue cap. Children climbed aboard. Parents took photos. I rang the bell. We moved. For 8 hours, I drove in circles, past the fountain, past the bakery, past the clothing stores, past Daniel, who arrived during hour 6 just to witness my dignity collapse. He stood beside the route holding coffee. Every time I passed, he waved. Every time I rang the bell at him. By the final lap, half the shopping center knew what was happening. People lined the route. Not because tiny trains are exciting, because the internet had discovered I was trying to reach 300 jobs. The last passengers were a group of children wearing paper conductor hats. I drove one final loop, stopped at the little station, checked the cars, helped everyone out, completed the closing inspection, clocked out. The blue interface filled my entire vision. Occupation completed. Amusement train operator. Total registered occupations, 300. The crowd around me applauded because they thought I had completed a video challenge. They had no idea. A second message appeared. Distinct occupation requirement complete. Master tier synthesis requirement 7 of 10 complete. Universal worker classification remains locked. I laughed. Of course, 300 jobs had not been the finish line. I still needed 3 more master professions. Daniel asked why I was laughing. I told him I had more work to do. He looked at the tiny train, then at me. Then he said, "Please tell me the next level is not Emperor." I checked the system map. The giant question mark node pulsed once. For a fraction of a second, the hidden text flickered. I only caught 2 words. Universal worker. Then, beneath it, something else. Income source. Unrestricted. I stopped smiling. Not because it sounded dangerous. Because it sounded unbelievably profitable. Daniel saw my face and groaned. I rang the tiny train bell one more time. 3 master professions left. I had no intention of slowing down. 3 master professions remained. On paper, that sounded easier than 100 new occupations. It was not. A master profession required more than collecting job titles. I had to prove I could combine a cluster into one real project, create measurable value, complete the work personally, and satisfy whatever strange condition the system invented. The 8th master path available to me was mobility operations. My relevant occupations were ridiculous when placed together. Delivery rider, motorcycle courier, commercial courier, valet, route planner, dispatcher, fleet mechanic, vehicle evaluator, rental operator, transport coordinator, logistics specialist. I had spent so much time moving objects from one place to another that the system apparently considered transportation one of my natural elements. The master challenge appeared. Design and operate a temporary city delivery network for 1 full day. Minimum completed deliveries 1,000. Average on-time rate 98%. Vehicle breakdown delay rate below 1%. No customer may pay an increased fee. No use of personal aircraft. I read the last line twice. The system knew me too well. I called my delivery company. The operations manager asked what I wanted. I told him I needed to deliver 1,000 things in one day without charging customers extra. He asked why. I told him professional development. There was silence. Then he said he would tell the team. I liked him. He had stopped asking questions. We did not create fake orders. I wanted legitimate deliveries, so I partnered with local businesses for one promotional day. Bakeries, pharmacies for normal non-prescription goods, bookstores, florists, office suppliers, small retailers. Customers ordered normally. We covered the delivery fee ourselves. The goal was not money. The goal was the system. I spent 2 days designing routes before the qualifying day, but preparation did not count as the shift. The actual day began at 5 in the morning. I worked in dispatch, then loading, then route management, then drove a van during the lunch surge, then switched to motorcycle delivery for dense downtown routes, then returned to the warehouse when one loading zone jammed. At 9:30 a.m. we were ahead. At noon we were slightly behind. At 2 p.m. a thunderstorm appeared because apparently the weather had subscribed to my channel and wanted screen time. Traffic slowed. Bike routes became dangerous. I pulled riders off flooded streets and transferred orders to vans. That cost time. On-time rate fell to 98.3%. Too close. Then one van developed a cooling problem. Fleet breakdown delay risk. I did not repair it on the road. Safety first. We moved the temperature-sensitive packages to another vehicle and returned the van to the depot. I joined Daeho's mechanics for 20 minutes during the inspection. The system did not count that as a mechanic shift, but the old skills helped. A connector had failed. Simple repair. Van back in service. At 5 p.m. we had completed 809 deliveries. 191 left. Evening traffic increased. I redesigned the final waves by neighborhood instead of order time. That sounds obvious. It was not obvious to the software because the software cared about individual estimated arrival windows more than group density. I overrode it manually. The drivers trusted me. That was the part I liked. Not because I owned the company, because I had done their jobs. I knew what it felt like to search for parking with soup getting colder behind me. I knew what it felt like to carry boxes upstairs. I knew what it felt like to have an app suggest a route that only made sense if your vehicle could pass through buildings. We hit delivery 990 at 8:14 p.m., 995 at 8:22, 999 at 8:31. The final order was flowers. Of course, a bouquet needed to go from a florist near the station to an apartment 15 minutes away. The driver assigned to it had a flat tire. I looked at the time, then at the bouquet, then at my motorcycle helmet. I took the order. I rode normally. No dramatic speeding. No jumping bridges. This was not that kind of story. I simply knew the fastest legal route. I parked, took the elevator, knocked. An elderly man opened the door. I handed him the flowers. He smiled and said they were for his wife's birthday. I wished her a happy birthday. Delivery complete. 1,000. The dashboard updated. On-time rate 98.6%. Breakdown delay rate 0.2%. Customer fee increase 0. Master challenge complete. Mobility operations specialist synthesized into master tier profession. Transportation network director. Multiplier 4. I raised both fists in the hallway. The elderly man opened the door again because he had heard me. I pretended I was stretching. 8 master professions. 2 left. The 9th was media. I had almost every relevant role. Camera operator, editor, host, producer, voice actor, location scout, stage interviewer, live stream operator, teleprompter operator, content creator, media business operator. My channel had become one of the largest work-focused entertainment channels online. The system offered a master challenge that sounded simple until I read the details. Produce 1 live program lasting at least 8 continuous hours. Personally perform at least 5 registered media occupations during the broadcast. Audience satisfaction above 92%. No pre-recorded main segments. No manufactured conflict. No fake job performance. I loved every rule. Television producers did not. An 8-hour live program with no fake drama sounded like a scheduling nightmare, so I made the theme obvious. I would work 1 full day inside a giant convention center while showing how an event actually runs. Not just the stage. Everything. Setup. Registration. Food. Lighting. Cleaning. Security coordination. Technical booth. Interviews. Breakdown. The event was a public job fair and skills festival. Companies demonstrated unusual occupations. Trade schools ran workshops. Workers explained what their jobs really involved. The audience could attend for free. Sponsors covered costs. I refused luxury brand sponsors. I wanted companies that made forklifts, kitchen equipment, work shoes, cameras, delivery vans, office chairs, cleaning machines, tools, coffee, and one extremely enthusiastic company that manufactured label printers. The label printer company offered 3 times what everyone else did. I respected their aggression. The live broadcast started at 7 in the morning. I hosted the opening, then walked backstage and became segment producer, then took a camera for a warehouse equipment demonstration, then interviewed a pastry chef, then joined the technical booth as a live production assistant, then returned to stage. 5 media roles before lunch. The system still did not count the challenge. I needed a full 8 continuous hours. At hour 4, a microphone failed. I replaced it. At hour 5, one guest disappeared. Not kidnapped, he found the free massage chair exhibit and fell asleep. I filled the segment by interviewing a woman who repaired commercial refrigerators. She was hilarious. She explained that half her job was asking restaurant owners what strange noise the machine made before it stopped. She could imitate 12 compressor sounds. The audience loved her. At hour 6, the internet connection dipped. Our backup line activated. At hour 7, my voice began to fail. I had hosted too much, so I moved behind the camera and let other workers speak. That improved the program. The audience did not need me every second. They needed interesting people. At exactly 8 hours, the system satisfaction meter hit 94%. Challenge complete. Media production cluster synthesized into master tier profession. Live media director. Multiplier 4. The broadcast continued for another 2 hours because the event was still running. By the end, viewers had donated millions to vocational scholarships. Sponsors added more. My media multipliers generated a payout so large that Daniel stopped reacting. He simply looked at the report and drank water. 9 master professions. 1 left. I expected the final master synthesis to come from hospitality or food. Instead, the system selected commerce, retail salesperson, commission salesman, auctioneer, product tester, personal shopper, business consultant, retail operator, e-commerce manager, brand marketer, procurement specialist, active investor. I had spent months buying, selling, evaluating, negotiating, and explaining products. The master challenge appeared. Create a new product offer with base retail price under $20. Sell at least 10,000 units to real customers within one qualifying workday. Refund rate below 2% after validation period. No celebrity priced markup. No artificial scarcity. No purchase limit manipulation. No personal bulk buying. I stared at the rule. Under $20. The system did not want me to sell a building. It wanted volume. Worse, I could not use my fame to charge extra. I needed an actually useful cheap product. I considered kitchen tools, phone accessories, stationery. Then I remembered the purple egg cooker, not the machine itself. The reason it sold. Simple, useful, easy to understand. I spent weeks researching small products without counting that as the qualifying master day. I worked with designers, retail staff, warehouse teams, delivery workers. I asked normal people what tiny daily annoyance they would pay under $20 to remove. The answer came from the least glamorous place possible. Cables. Everyone hated cables. Charging cables fell behind desks, slid off nightstands, tangled in bags, disconnected. We designed a simple weighted cable holder made from recycled rubber, with slots for different cable sizes. Nothing revolutionary, no artificial intelligence, no app, no subscription, a chunk of useful rubber. We made it durable, washable, easy to ship. Retail price, $9. Daniel looked at the prototype. He said, "Your final master profession depends on this." I nodded. He picked it up, set it on the desk, slid his charging cable into the slot. The cable stayed. He stared at it. Then he said, "I hate that I like it." Perfect. We arranged launch inventory. Real stores, real e-commerce listings, normal customers, no fake orders. I used my channel to announce the product, but the system warned me that celebrity exposure was allowed only if the price remained normal and claims remained accurate. Fine. I demonstrated it. This holds cables. That was the entire pitch. I refused dramatic music. The launch day began. At 8 a.m., the listing went live. First hour, 1,800 sales. Second hour, 3,100 total. By noon, 6,700. Then sales slowed. I needed 10,000 before the end of my qualifying day. I worked customer support, read reviews, monitored returns, coordinated restocking, visited a retail store, demonstrated the product, explained that yes, it was basically a heavy rubber thing with grooves. People appreciated the honesty. At 6 in the evening, sales reached 9,200. At 7, 9,600. At 8, 9,811. I needed 189. Then a video appeared online, not mine. A cat owner had discovered the holder could keep charging cables from dangling off a desk where her cat attacked them. The video spread. Sales jumped. 10,000, 10,500, 11,000. The system flashed. Volume requirement complete. Refund validation pending. I groaned. Another waiting challenge. For 7 days I watched the return rate. 1.1%, 1.3, 1.2. Then the final validation locked. Refund rate 1.2%. Challenge complete. Commerce cluster synthesized into master tier profession commercial systems architect. Multiplier 4. 10 master tier professions complete. The blue interface opened by itself. Every other system window disappeared. For the first time, the giant central node on my profession map cleared. Universal worker classification unlocked. I sat alone in my office at midnight. No cameras. No audience. No staff. Just me and the blue light. I expected fireworks. Instead, the system displayed a plain sentence. You have demonstrated breadth across 300 occupations and mastery across 10 professional systems. Universal Worker does not replace existing occupations. It connects them. I swallowed. The next line appeared. Universal Worker Multiplier. 2. I laughed. 2. After everything, the greatest hidden profession started at 2 like I was back at Golden Spoon. Then the description expanded. Any full qualifying workday may advance Universal Worker Multiplier in addition to the specific occupation multiplier. Universal Worker Income may apply to eligible compensation after all compatible occupation calculations. I stopped laughing. After all compatible occupation calculations. That meant the Universal Multiplier sat at the end, a final multiplier. Every day I worked any legitimate occupation. It could double. 2, 4, 8, 16, 32. It did not need its own special job. Every job counted. I immediately imagined 30 days. then 60, then 100. My calculator app opened. I closed it. Some numbers should be approached with protective equipment. Then I read the final line. Universal worker special condition. Base income source unrestricted. I remembered the flicker at job 300. Unrestricted. I tapped for details. For normal occupations, the system multiplied compensation tied directly to work, wage, fee, commission, profit share, project value in certain higher tiers. Universal worker could treat any legitimate economic value generated by my qualifying workday as base income when the connection was measurable. Any legitimate economic value. I sat very still. That could mean company revenue created, asset value increased, cost savings, audience revenue, sales volume, transaction value, maybe even something as simple as a restaurant's daily sales. I had spent months turning small jobs into big money. Now the system had removed the walls between them. My phone rang. Daniel, I answered. He asked why several financial monitoring systems had suddenly generated new classification warnings around my accounts. I told him I had unlocked something. He said, of course you did. I told him the universal multiplier started at 2. He went silent. Then he said that did not sound bad. I told him it doubled after every qualifying workday. He went silent again. Then I explained unrestricted base value. A much longer silence. Finally, Daniel said, go to sleep. I said I was not tired. He said that was not advice. That was risk management. For once, I listened. The next morning, I tested Universal Worker with the smallest possible job I could think of. I returned to the bookstore. Not as a billionaire event, not for content. I asked for a normal temporary shift during inventory week. The manager knew me, but by now businesses had accepted that Jin Park occasionally appeared and requested to do ordinary work for reasons nobody understood. I spent 8 hours counting stock, shelving books, helping customers, and processing deliveries. At closing, the blue system appeared. Bookstore clerk occupation completed. Bookstore clerk multiplier doubled. Universal worker occupation completed. Universal worker multiplier doubled. Current universal multiplier 4. Then the system calculated compensation. My bookstore shift paid a normal wage. Bookstore clerk multiplier applied. Then universal worker multiplied the result by 2. Because the day had started at universal multiplier 2 before advancement. The payout was not impressive by my standards. A few $1,000s. Perfect. The system worked. Day 2, I worked at the car wash. Universal multiplier advanced to 8. Day 3, bakery assistant, 16. Day 4, warehouse worker, 32. Day 5, photographer, 64. Day 6, consultant, 128. Day 7, delivery driver, 256. I had not even touched my high-value master professions. Daniel began sending me messages every morning. Please choose something cheap today. I did, mostly. On day 8, I worked as a dog walker. The universal multiplier reached 512. On day 9, I worked at the farm. Chairman the chicken attacked me. Universal multiplier reached 1024. On day 10, I worked as amusement train operator again. Children loved that I came back. Universal multiplier reached 2048. The internet assumed I was doing a back to basics series. I let them think that. Day 11 was restaurant worker. I returned to Golden Spoon. My restaurant multiplier was already enormous. Universal worker applied after it. One normal shift produced more money than some publicly traded companies earned in a year. Mr. Hand saw the payroll alert. He looked at me. I looked at him. He unplugged the new dishwasher, pointed at it, and said, "You already bought me this." Stop. I plugged it back in. He told me to go home. The system required a full shift. I finished closing. Universal multiplier reached 4096. That was when I realized I had a new problem. Every single workday was now dangerous to my finances. Not dangerous in a serious way. Dangerous in a my banking software may require new number formatting way. I needed small jobs. I became obsessed with low base pay. Irony had completed its circle. When I was broke, I searched for the highest wage. Now I was terrifyingly rich, searching job boards for the smallest legitimate compensation because the multiplier stack made everything huge. I worked as a leaflet distributor. Universal doubled. I worked as a coat check attendant. Doubled. I worked at a movie theater concessions counter. Doubled. I spent one day packaging candles. Doubled. I worked a quiet shift at a garden center. Doubled. After another week, the universal multiplier crossed 500,000. Daniel called an emergency meeting. He had a whiteboard. This was serious. He drew 3 circles: my work, my multipliers, the economy. He pointed to the 3rd circle and asked me to stop punching it. I told him I was not taking money from anyone. He agreed. That was not the problem. The problem was that my income records were becoming impossible for banks, auditors, software systems, and institutions to process. Transactions were legitimate but absurd. Some automated fraud systems had started flagging the payment processors themselves. One bank's algorithm apparently concluded that I must be a sovereign state. I asked if they offered good interest rates. Daniel did not laugh. We created new structures, multiple accounts, holding companies, trusts, foundations, investment vehicles, cash management systems. Then I worked 1 full day helping the family office implement them. Universal worker doubled. Daniel stared at the whiteboard. I apologized. He erased family office work from my list of safe activities. The universal multiplier passed 1 million, then 2 million, then 4. I kept choosing jobs with tiny base wages. It did not matter. One day as a bookstore clerk now produced more compensation than luxury property deals used to. One day making coffee created payments that required multiple bank settlements. One day as a delivery rider became absurd again. That was when I made the mistake that created the most famous order of my life. The delivery app had been asking me to do a nostalgic shift. Fans remembered my early bicycle days. I agreed to 1 full day. No publicity stunt. No premium concierge service. Just normal food delivery. I even used a bicycle, not my old broken one. I had preserved that bicycle in storage because it deserved retirement. I used a basic city bike. First order, noodles. Base delivery fee, $6. Food delivery multiplier applied. Then courier overlap for eligible platform classification. Then universal worker. The payout exceeded $1 million. 4 noodles. I almost wrote into a sign. Second order, 2 coffees, over 1 million. Third order, fried rice, over 1 million. Fourth, a sandwich, over 1 million. Every routine order was paying 7 figures or more. The title everyone had used months earlier had finally become literally normal. $1 million per order. Not for a prototype. Not for a launch stunt. Not for a private island. A sandwich. I delivered it to an office worker named Kevin. He opened the door, took the bag, said thanks. I looked at him and thought, you have no idea this sandwich just changed several financial dashboards. I rode away. By lunch, one of the platform's internal analysts noticed my payouts. Then finance noticed, then senior management. Nobody stopped the orders because the company itself was not losing the multiplied amount. The system's financial corrections kept appearing. Employees simply watched the payout feed like a sporting event. At one point, a dispatcher messaged me, "Sir, order 1842 is bubble tea. Please be careful." I was always careful, but now the entire company treated my lunch deliveries like space missions. I finished 28 orders that day. Everyone crossed $1 million. Some crossed 10 million because of stacked bonuses. At the end of the full shift, universal worker doubled again. I parked the bicycle, took off my helmet. Then a crowd outside the delivery hub cheered. Somebody had leaked the payout numbers. Reporters appeared. Drivers held signs saying, "Adopt my route." One driver asked me to touch his insulated bag for luck. I told him that was not how it worked. He asked me to do it anyway. I tapped the bag. He looked satisfied. My job series entered an even stranger phase. People did not envy my luxury things. I barely posted them. They became fascinated with my shifts. A video of me packing boxes outperformed a celebrity wedding video. A clip of me cleaning a coffee machine received 30 million views. People made compilations of every time I stared at empty air after clocking out. That was bad. Viewers had noticed the system moments. They could not see the interface, but they could see me freeze, then smile, then sometimes calculate something. Online detectives began calling it the Jin pause. I needed to stop reacting publicly. The next time the system appeared on camera, I kept a completely straight face. Universal worker multiplier doubled. My internal reaction, financial screaming. My external reaction, I picked up a mop. The comments said I looked mysterious. I was trying not to laugh. Then the system introduced universal challenges. Of course it did. Universal Advancement Challenge. Complete 5 qualifying workdays in occupations with current individual multiplier below 16. I stared at it. That meant new or neglected jobs. The system was forcing me away from my giant chains. Good. I needed new experiences anyway. But I had already registered 300 occupations. Finding 5 with multipliers below 16 was easy because many had only 1 or 2 completed days. I chose amusement train operator, lobster costume technician, beekeeping assistant, weather presenter, and sign promoter. Daniel saw the list. He circled sign promoter. He asked why. I told him the arrow deserved another day. The sign spinning shift became legendary. I stood beside a new apartment complex. Same kind of arrow, same road. But now 500,000 people had seen the announcement online. Crowds gathered. Police had to manage traffic, which almost invalidated the shift because I was causing more congestion than advertising. I moved to a quieter street. People followed. Finally, the developer placed me inside the property courtyard where I could spin the sign without distracting drivers. For 8 hours, I performed increasingly unnecessary arrow maneuvers. A child asked me to do a helicopter spin. I tried. The sign escaped my hand and landed in a hedge. No one was injured. The child gave me 6 out of 10. Honest review. The universal challenge counted. Then beekeeping. Chairman Bee did not exist, thankfully. Then weather presenting. This time I knew where the map was. Mostly. Then costume technician. I repaired 3 wizard robes and cleaned a dragon tail. Then amusement train operator. The tiny train returned. At the end of the 5th day, universal challenge complete. Multiplier doubled with challenge bonus. My multiplier jumped twice. I stared at the number. Then another system message appeared. Peer network synchronization available. I froze. That was new. Peer, not occupation, not income. Peer. I tapped it. A warning appeared. Other qualified income systems may exist within synchronization radius. I read the line again. Other systems. For months, I had wondered why me. I had assumed I was alone because nobody else had appeared. Maybe I was wrong. The interface displayed one nearby signal, not a name, not a location, just a classification. Single occupation specialist. I laughed. Of course. I had spent a year becoming everything. Somebody else had apparently done the exact opposite. Then the signal disappeared. I searched the system. No result. I asked Daniel whether he knew anyone with impossible income behavior. He stared at me. Then he said, "Besides you." Yes, he thought, then shook his head. I forgot about it for 3 days. On the 4th day, I went to a convenience store at 2 in the morning. I had been editing a new video and wanted instant noodles. The store was empty except for one clerk. He looked around my age, maybe 24. Black hair, plain uniform, name tag, Kang Min-ho. He was restocking bottled water. I grabbed noodles, a drink, a triangle sandwich, walked to the counter. Min-ho scanned everything. He looked at me, not with surprise, not with fan excitement, just calmly. Then he said, "You're Jin Park." I said yes. He nodded. Then he asked, "How many occupations?" My hand stopped halfway to my wallet. That was not a normal fan question. People asked how many jobs I had tried, not occupations. Not exactly like the system terminology. I looked at him carefully. He smiled. Then his eyes moved slightly to the empty air beside me, the exact place my interface was floating. I could not see his interface, but I knew. He knew. I asked how many he had. He said, 1. I almost laughed. Then I saw the convenience store's payroll terminal behind him. A payment notification had appeared for his completed shift. I should not have been able to see details from where I stood, but the number was large. Very large. The display automatically shortened it. Not millions, not billions, not trillions. The abbreviation was one I had never seen on a normal payroll screen. I looked at Min-ho. He shrugged. He said he had worked convenience store night shift for a long time. Same occupation. Every day. He never chased other jobs, never switched, never combined, just doubled, again, and again, and again. My entire strategy had been breadth. His had been depth. I asked how long. He told me the system appeared for him 4 years ago. I slowly put my wallet away. He had 4 years of completed convenience store shifts, even if he missed days. No. I refused to calculate it. My brain had survived enough exponentials. I asked why he was still working in a convenience store if his income was that high. He looked around, then said, "I like the night shift." I understood immediately. That was somehow the most terrifying answer possible. Not a villain, not a secret king. Just a man who genuinely enjoyed organizing drinks at 2 in the morning while earning numbers that probably frightened national accounting systems. He finished my transaction. I picked up the bag, then both of us froze. 2 blue windows appeared. Mine, his. For the first time, the system recognized another user directly. Peer network established. Breadth specialist detected. Depth specialist detected. Comparative occupation challenge available. I stared at the message. Minho read his, then looked at me. I asked what his said. He told me to say mine first. I refused. We stood across a convenience store counter like two children hiding test scores. Finally, we both tapped accept. The challenge opened. One shared occupation will be selected at random. Both participants must complete one legitimate full shift under identical base compensation conditions. Existing individual multipliers remain active. No wealth advantage. No ownership advantage. No outside staff advantage. Performance bonus awarded based on work quality. I started smiling. Minho started smiling too. This was not a battle for the world. It was worse. It was a work contest. The system began selecting an occupation. Restaurant worker flashed. Delivery driver, photographer, warehouse picker, tour guide, florist, barista, mechanic, mascot performer. The list spun faster. I wanted restaurant worker. That was my oldest chain. Minho probably wanted convenience store clerk. That was his monster. The selection slowed. Sign promoter. No. Cake decorator. Possible. Hotel housekeeper. Dangerous. Delivery driver. My eyes widened. The selection almost stopped, then moved one more time. Professional moving assistant. I stared. Minho stared. The system confirmed it. Moving assistant. Base wage fixed. 8-hour qualifying shift. Team assignments randomized. Customer satisfaction and damage-free completion effect bonus. Challenge date. Saturday. I had worked moving jobs before. My multiplier was decent. Minho had never done it. I should have had an overwhelming advantage. Then his system displayed something mine did not. I could not read the window, but I saw him react. For the first time, his calm expression broke. He looked delighted. I asked what happened. He said his system had just unlocked a temporary cross-occupation transfer because of peer challenge rules. I asked what that meant. He said, I think my convenience store multiplier comes with me. I stopped smiling. His convenience store multiplier. 4 years of doubling. Applied to moving work for 1 day. That was financially disgusting. Then my system flashed. Breadth compensation rule activated. For peer challenge only, the universal worker multiplier may combine with every compatible occupation personally performed during the shift. I started smiling again. Minho leaned over the counter. He asked what mine said. I told him he would find out Saturday. He laughed. Then the automatic door opened. A woman in a business suit entered, walked directly between us, and put a package of gum on the counter. She looked at Minho, then at me, then at the 2 empty spaces where our invisible interfaces floated. My stomach dropped. She could see them too, not just sense them. Her eyes tracked the windows perfectly. She placed a black card on the counter. No company logo. No title, just a name, Yunari. Under it, 1 line, independent compensation auditor. I looked at her. Minho looked at her. She picked up the gum. Then she said there were more of us than we thought. My system instantly opened a new message. Third peer signal detected. Classification unknown. Synchronization blocked by external rule. I had no idea what that meant. Nari smiled like she knew exactly what it meant. Then she told us Saturday's moving challenge had already attracted attention. I asked from who. She said, people who are tired of watching YouTube break payroll software. That sounded less like a threat and more like Daniel had formed a support group. I almost laughed. Then Nari tapped the counter with 1 finger. Minho's register printed a receipt by itself. The total for her gum was negative. The store owed her money. I stared at the receipt. She took the gum, took the money from the automatic cash tray, then walked out. Minho and I looked at each other. I said, did she just get paid to buy gum? He nodded. I looked through the window. Nari was already gone. My system flashed again. Unknown compensation mechanic observed. Analysis unavailable. I had spent a year believing my salary doubling ability was the strangest economic power in existence. Apparently, I was not even the weirdest person in that convenience store. Saturday was 4 days away. I had a moving challenge against a man who had doubled 1 occupation for 4 years. A mysterious woman could somehow make purchases pay her. My universal multiplier was still growing. And, according to the peer network, more signals had begun appearing around the city. I went home. Daniel was asleep, so I did not call him. That was mercy. I opened my occupation map. 300 glowing jobs. 10 master professions. Universal worker pulsing in the center. Then, around the edge, tiny new lights appeared. 1, 3, 7, 12. Other people. Other systems. Other ridiculous ways to get paid. I should have been worried. Instead, I opened my calendar and wrote 1 thing on Saturday. moving shift. Then I search for videos on how to carry a sofa around a narrow staircase. Some battles are won with power, some with strategy. Apparently mine was going to be won by not dropping somebody's couch. I smiled at the blue interface. 4 days. One shared job. A depth specialist with an impossible multiplier. A mystery auditor who got paid to shop. And me, Jin Park, the man who had turned clocking out into a financial weapon. I had started this entire mess washing dishes for minimum wage. Now one ordinary delivery could pay me millions. One normal shift could bend accounting software. And the system had just shown me that I was nowhere near the top of whatever this was. The next notification appeared before I could close the interface. Pure challenge bonus pool detected. Estimated combined payout calculation overflow. I stared at the words. Then I laughed so loudly my neighbor knocked on the wall. I knocked back. Saturday was going to be expensive.